Welcome back to another episode of 225 TCP. I try to combine 2 and T into the same word, and I mean 2 does start with the letter T. We're here for another team preview, or a number of team previews. We're here for the APAC team previews part 1, because there's 7 APAC teams, and trying to do them all together would be kind of wild. We've got a special guest with us today to cover the APAC teams. It is the brother in the bottom right corner, Kenobi. And things are going to get wild now on this side of the Overwatch League team brackets kind of region thing.
Is that the official? Is that the official name for it?
Dude, got it.
I decided. I talked to Matt and I was like, you know what? I think Eastern Division isn't clear enough. We should make it more clear.
Should be spicy.
Yeah, the APAC side thingy of the Overwatch League bracket is what I'm calling it now.
Can Asian teams afford like proper names still? Apparently, like everything is going to shit, right?
Hey.
I think Fusion are fine. I heard Comcast is doing reasonably good, so
okay,
they're fine.
That's good. That's
T1's
good.
killing
They're
it.
an Asian team, so yeah.
Genji's pretty.
After that, I'm not too sure. After that, I think Seoul are probably good.
Dude,
how are you guys doing today?
You know, Guangzhou's got the neutral life money.
Herbalife.
No,
whatever. They might.
What life did you say?
Neutral life.
They're trying to survive in the neutral. But, we'll get to them. We'll get to them.
I was about to, like, when the report came out, I was about to have like a fire tweet, and then I read it again, and unfortunately it didn't work anymore. But I thought Gaga was also considering being sold, and I was going to just like do a little video of like, how long does it take to get a Chinese citizen to the United States on a visa if I know the owner of the Sacramento Kings, because I want Gaga on Shock to help out their lineup.
He's the one you want to save out of that entire team. He's the one you want to save. Anyway, you should, not saying he should be saved, but Yiska, please explain. This is what our intro for this episode is going to be. Our introductory little segment for 225 is now going to comprise, you know what the intros are? We're just going to talk about this topic now because it's on hand, and we're going to get into the team as well. So we might as well talk about the topic. Before we do, episode 225 is brought to you by Battlecrowd, Refine Bean, Bronzebot Buhao, Chare, Commissioner Picasso, Chris R34444, Casher67, Lolshin, Porkchop Sammy, Rick Singh, Volamel Smooth Nuts, and Your Misery. The headline topic for the Eastern Division is about the Chengdu Hunters, and we will be covering them in this particular episode as well in terms of team preview. But what we will not be doing during the team preview is talking about their current situation with the roster stability, whatever financial situation in the team preview itself. Instead, we're just going to talk about that right now, because there's no point kind of reviewing their roster under the pretense of like, well, I don't know what the roster is going to look like. In that case, there's just no point reviewing the roster. When we review the roster, we're going to pretend that all the players they currently have on the roster are going to actually play, because that's all we can actually work with. So right now, we might as well cover the news briefly. Yiska, what actually happened? You already started talking about. Why don't you explain what the news is about the Chengdu Hunters?
Well, Halo came out with a report on the Exodo talking about how the Chengdu Hunters are currently having to entertain like selling some of their excess talent off, mainly because the parent company don't Kenobi, it's Huya, right?
Huya,
yeah.
Huya. The Chinese streaming service Huya, which is one of their many Twitch type of streaming services. Anyway, continue.
It's facing financial trouble, I believe, in the context of like a bunch of government crackdowns on the entertainment industry at large. They lost, I think at this point, 85% plus of their market value or stock price, and it's looking dire, man. Like I guess other companies, theoretically speaking, like it's interesting that we haven't heard anything from the other companies that are in a similar situation, right? You would expect, but
I think it's because like specifically Huya is like streaming in terms of like streaming streams. I think for like Bilibili has most of their, not most of their, but like a lot of their streaming services is predicated, like they're the best like anime place stream. China. So I think they have that. I think Guangzhou, I don't necessarily know owns them, but
Guangzhou owned by a traditional sports ownership group,
they're
as far as I'm
fine,
aware.
And then Valiant are owned by LGE. Well, they're owned by
No, they're owned by Immortals.
Yeah.
Managed. They're
fine.
currently operated by LG, but owned by Immortals still.
And then Shanghai is Neti, which I believe
Is
is
game
a
publishing.
technology.
Well, they do game publishing and other stuff, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, for out of like the four, like Chengdu is the one that is like specifically like directly hurt by the game, which sucks
Right.
for them.
Yeah. So according to Halo's report, I think 5 players have been considered like as to be sold in order to offset, or I guess also just bring down the maintenance cost. Of course, the most severe one being last year's MVP Leave, but also I believe Farway was one of them, Ivelta was one of them, Nisha and Monk.
Nisha and Monk.
Yeah. Were the
So not just their extra players. You're talking about the MVP because you mentioned earlier. I was like, oh, they're going to sell some of these, kind of trim some of the fat down.
Yeah.
No, they're going straight to the heart. They're stabbing that heart in the chest. You know.
Yeah.
Because their leave is apparently on the table to be traded or sold.
Now,
so
to be fair,
contenders team as well.
Yes, and as well as like
an
the
extra cost. Though. That's a big cost for most teams.
Yeah, it makes sense for them to do. It was. I mean, they got what they wanted out of it, which was a Preda, and now they just like with the financial troubles, there's no need to keep it.
An expensive way to get a Preda if that was their goal. It's like, oh, we just want to get a Preda. It's like, oh, so you just paid like 10 other people just to get one guy. I get it.
Well, I mean, to be fair, like he would have, if they couldn't have locked him down, I don't think he would have been on this team on Academy.
Yeah,
he would have gone to like Billy, and he would have been on.
I don't know. I think it still depends on. I guess that would be up to Billy then. If Billy want to sell, if he was on BLG and said, you'd have to come down to whether Billy would want to sell him to Chengdu or whatever. But in either case, the long and short of it is, Huya. I just took a look at the stock price. So they went from $34 USD and 1 cent in 12th of February last year, 2021. The current stock price, as far as I'm aware, as of 14th of April, so that was a few days ago now, is $4.53 USD.
Damn.
So they've dropped about $30 almost per share.
That's a lot.
It's a lot. They dropped quite a lot. So it is quite concerning. So they are in some financial issues right now. Clearly, whatever decision came through to change up their roster or put players on the selling block is pretty recent, because I think if they were going to go down that road, they clearly would have done that before acquiring / transferring a Preda from their academy team and doing whatever else, but and signing other players on for this year, right? So that actually explains a few things. It explains why they haven't signed a second tank yet. It explains why they haven't signed a new coach yet for the team to replace Ray, who has also, I believe, now been fully let go from his honorary advisor position, which I thought was a bit of a meme in the first place, but apparently he actually was still doing stuff kind of on the side for the team, and now he's officially out of Chengdu as a result. Also, I heard that Creed, which is their assistant coach and most likely next person up to be promoted to a head coaching position, is also on the selling block. He has already either been let go or in the process of in that process. So they're also just cutting down coaching staff and other staff as well. So it's looking pretty bad. It's looking pretty dire for Chengdu right now. I would say the best outcome obviously the best outcome for them as a team, not speaking to the financials, is to just somehow keep everyone in play this season. But what it's looking like right now is somebody's got to go. They have a lot of players that they can get rid of. Probably what's going to happen is they go down to a 6-man roster, right? That's what it sounds like to me. So it sounds like, to be fair, I actually don't see Leave going, unless Leave is on a mega salary, which he could be, and they trade Leave for a cheaper player, which they could do. Probably the most likely result to me would be they keep 3 DPS plus Gaga and 2 supports, or they actually do sell Leave off. They keep Jinmu and a Preda, Gaga plus 1 tank and 2 supports for a 6-man roster. Is what it sounds like will most likely happen. I'm almost of the 100% belief now that they're definitely going to cull 2 supports in some way, because having 4 supports on for this game is quite a lot. You don't need 4. You might not even need 3. 3 is, if you have money and you want to feel safe, 3 is great. You definitely don't need 4. So but it sounds like because they're in financial issues, the best way to do that is to cull all the way down to 6. Now 2 supports, 1 tank, 3 DPS plus leave, I think it's still workable. I think that's a salvageable season for them. So I wouldn't mind if that's what it's got to be. I'd be somewhat okay if they went down to that. But if they get rid of leave, I think their season is done.
It's too much of a loss, I think. Like, just losing a player of his caliber, I think in a game like this where DPS is going to be so important, the game, in like Overwatch 2, I think losing leave is like, you have to basically pull out like every single stop to avoid it. There's like, it's DEFCON 0 if like leave leaves the team. And I mean, I think that they have enough in terms of their support depth where it's like you can make some pretty decent decisions. Like, no matter who you keep here, I think you're fine. I think their hardest decision will come to be whether they want Farway or Monk. I think Farway was good whenever we saw him. I think Monk was actually pretty good as well. I think based on Yveltal's history with this team and what happened last year, I think he's probably the one to go out of the 2, even though I think that mechanically Yveltal is better, but I don't know how you can. I don't know if they realistically want to rely on after what happened. And as for the coaching staff, like, I'm surprised Creed isn't the one who's going to be head coach, because Creed is the understudy, I would say, quote unquote, of like Ray from like Miraculous Youngster and when he was a coach. Yaoshi is, I think he, as a coach, I don't know how much he has done. As a player, like, he was all right. I know he did coach Flag Gaming that one time that they beat Team CC in the grand finals. However, that was the one time where Team CC didn't have No Hill on their team, actively coaching them because he was doing university. So take that with a grain of salt if you must. But this team is, as long as they keep leave and they trim it down to like what AVRL is saying, I think they'll be fine. It'd be nice to have all the depth that they have, but you just need to keep that one piece, and the rest should be able to be okay.
At least from a player perspective. But they're losing coaches because they lost J-Field already.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the Halo report also named Creed. Yaoshi was the only one that wasn't named. So it sounds like only Yaoshi is remaining as a coach, if that is what is happening.
Yep.
For people concerned about leave, I think leave can still land on a team somewhere, just because, like, he's obviously the MVP. But also, even though every other team has DPSs in the slots, I could actually, as sad as I would be for another team to do this, I could see another team cutting a player to make space for leave. If you know, I'm sure No Hill's sitting there on Valiant with, he's rubbing his hands together like, ooh, leaves on the table. Not that Valiant could probably afford him, but I just think it's I just think it'd be funny if Valiant get a windfall of Chengdu players from this fallout. Like, Valiant, like, Chengdu just lose these players, and No Hill's like, oh, doors are open, fellas. Doors are open right here. Look, just got rid of Mike Haley, got a spot in the team. I've only got 1 tank here on session so far. Got room for 1 more, fellas. Gaga, come along, buddy. Call the links. Call the links. I like them, but I'll take 1 more support. Doors are open, fellas. Got warm beds. Hot food here. Come and join the LA Valiant is what No Hill's saying right now. So you're about to see like half the Chengdu Hunters team on the LA Valiant soon. I'm pretty sure. That's a good joke that I'm saying. I don't know if that would actually happen, because I don't think Immortals can afford that, but it would be a good meme.
I mean, I don't think it's like that out of the question if like somebody wants to play, and like, this is assuming that somehow IGC has any kind of budget left over. But there again, we still have yet to see whatever that roster looks like officially. So I wouldn't rule it completely out. It's a sad state of affairs for Chengdu, because this was like the season for them. I think, if you watch any of the previous episodes, how bullish we were on, Aprida's, potential Rookie of the Year ballot nomination. Again, not winning it, but nomination. And just generally, like, it was just such a big answer for this team, and to see that being drawn into question is both disappointing and disheartening, to say the least. So yeah, it kind of sucks.
Cool.
Sad.
Any final thoughts on this topic before we go into the actual team preview, where we all pretend the entire team is going to stay together?
Yeah.
Nope.
It sucks.
We've done. Everyone's good. Further thoughts?
Just sad.
Sad.
How likely would it be for Leave to end up on a North American team, or is visas just going to be too hard?
5%.
I mean, you could.
You just make up that number. What is that? Did you just?
I mean, you have to have money extra to spend to be like, yeah, like you need to have fuck you money to be like, yeah, let's sign this guy who we're not.
A few teams do.
I mean, they do, but like,
fuck you money.
Let's sign this guy who we're not guaranteed to get potentially for like the next month or two, and we'll be lucky if we get probably before MSI.
Yep.
You gotta have some fucking
teams
dollar bills.
Atlanta fucking signed Speedily, and he's not available until stage fucking 3.
But he's on the team at least. Like he's gonna scrim. Leave's not gonna. You think Leave's gonna scrim with the team from China? If it's in NA?
Yeah.
Maybe? No, I'm thinking about it. I don't know. I was really thinking about it for a second. Maybe. I don't know. It's just a fun thought experiment.
Yeah.
Maybe Leave could roll up to flex support and join London, you know? That'll push up London by about 20 spaces in the rankings.
You can play everything.
From last place to first place instantly for me. Florida's still picking up people. That's crazy. Florida's still picking up people. That was wild to me. Who did they announce again? They just announced one more DPS, didn't they?
I think
they didn't announce
it. Rumored.
It is rumored.
Rumored? Who was it?
Erkey.
Oh yeah, my boy. Wow.
XCI, as Yiska likes to.
Yeah.
XCI joined the FLORIDAMAYHEM team. Yeah, I love that.
Once.
Yeah, who knows? It's looking like things are up in the air. We will be paying close attention to the Chengdu Hunters. I especially will be paying close attention to them, as I'm going to end up having to cast them if no matter what happens, if they have a good team or a bad team. But Soul's smiling right now.
Leave. You know, Leave. I saw him in your video and
it's true. Yeah,
like you know him. You're
personal relationship.
You're like this.
I know, dude. I know. You check out his poker face though. He kept his composure. He was very good.
He's a professional.
Absolutely.
He's great on camera. So that definitely improves prospects for the other Eastern Division APAC teams in terms of having to get past Chengdu this year. Obviously, depending on what the team looks like. So why don't we talk about the team a little bit now? Well, let's head over to the actual team preview. If you've just clicked on the timestamp and you're just like, I just want to see the team preview, you're probably confused about what's going on right now. But we, again, just to reiterate, we will not be incorporating the whole team implosion factor into the preview because there's no way to actually quantify that.
Yeah.
I mean, how would you quantify that? It could literally be 0 of the current players or all 9 of them, 8 of them rather. Who knows? So we might as well just pretend they're all going to be there and just see what happens. All right, Chengdu Hunters, 2022. I was going to say they're looking like a top 3 team, current MVP, fill in the gaps with a Pritter as well. Just initial thoughts so far on this team before we head into the specifics of the roles. Anybody got some opening thoughts? Widely, macro?
Just in general, kind of an overarching summary. Barring any changes, future viewer and or
Redditor
Jones who wants to pipe up in hindsight. This is a title contending team and a top 5 team in the world. Just is.
Any hindsight pipers?
How much
sure
of this shit's gonna get clipped
from a month from now? I was like, oh, Joe, yes, Volamel said it was gonna be a top contending team. They don't even have Leave anymore.
Yeah, exactly. Like fucking.
So yeah, whoops, my bad, dude. Sorry, I couldn't get to the future for me to get that, my bad. That's my bad. That's
future me is holding that out. Just know that.
Joe's right though. No, man, he's right. This is a top 5 team in the world. I think I have them when we did our power rankings a little bit earlier. I think I have them directly at 5th. Like they are the 5th best team, I think, in the world at the current moment. Second in APAC, only behind Shanghai. From top to bottom, like you look at this team, especially after the way they performed last year, not really losing too much. The big thing that hurts this team, and then I would have personally put them a little bit higher if they still had Ray, as their coach, but he's not there. So I would imagine that they're going to do committee with Creed and Yaoshi would be how I would see that going. I like that Creed is still here because Creed, like I said, is kind of the understudy of, Ray in that old Miraculous Youngster style. He's the one who's always with him when they were at World Cup doing well. Yaoshi is someone who I think as a coach, I'm not sure necessarily what they do as a coach. They did have some success at Flag Gaming, but I don't think compared to like Creed and Ray, it's the same type of deal.
It's okay. Most people don't know what coaches do at the best times.
True. Yeah. So I think that this team is very good this season again, especially with DPS potentially being like very impactful. You have the MVP. Like, what more do you want at this point? I think he's the best DPS in the world at the current moment, and I don't see anyone else really that you would pick above Leave if you wanted to like build a roster. Like, I think he's like overall, if you put him on like tell me like there's like someone who could play like literally everything, I'd say it's Leave, and he could play it at an extremely high level. You
said what more could you want? You already have the MVP. What more could be? Let's have the MVP and the Rookie of the Year on the same team.
True, right?
That would be more. That would be more.
And I don't think we're like that too far off. And like you talk about wanting more from an MVP, Yiska, and I'm gonna toss this right to you. But like, is it nuts to think about Leave having a better season this season potentially than he did last season? I don't think it's that out of like left field, or like that's like too far fetched to say that like Leave this season, barring any changes, will have a better season statistically and like eye performance, eye test, whatever the fuck you want to call it. He's in the driver's seat to have a better season than he did in 2021. Just is.
I'm not so sure about that, simply because like the Ray situation gives me some question marks there. Also, yeah, the thing is like it's very hard to remain hot 2 years in a row. I think it's also just in the context of everything. Like in my mind, when you like when Kenobi said like, is there a player you'd rather like build a team around? Currently in the transfer market, I guess we have to like think about that. But yeah, like definitely like Lip and Flatter just because they can speak Korean, right?
Korean. Yeah, but I mean, okay, but like if like just from the mechanics alone, like in a perfect world where everyone could speak the same language and could communicate, right. I don't think that there's literally
not
anyone
above.
else that you pick
Equal.
up and leave at the current moment.
Yeah,
There's
equal
not,
maybe, but
not even equal. I don't even think equal.
I
think it's a clear cut decision that Leave is the best. Like I think like Kevster is someone else who like potentially is in a conversation for like after that, but it's like it's very clearly Leave is the best DPS in the world at the current moment based on what we saw last.
Why not
that
Lip
like
though?
Continues going into. Well, I mean, what about Lip?
What
about him?
I like that.
I mean, are we going to check the fact that the MVP vote as like an indication of
Brother man,
future?
you're not going populist, are you?
No.
Please. I know we just did the Twitter video. I know you just won the draft. Please, God, Jesus.
Wait, I'm literally going anti-populist.
Okay.
I'm deciding against the masses that voted Leave because AVRL is the Overwatch community Pied Piper.
I think Lip's good, but like a person to build around.
Dude, Leave can. I think people don't understand this about Leave is that Leave can play literally everything under the sun at a high level.
Yes,
like
and
literally
he's done that
everything, and he's
years.
done it consistently after doing a break and going to PUBG.
Yeah,
I think this kid is fucking so good at this game.
First point. I'm so proud of you, Kenobi. I've converted you so effectively. Second thing.
What do you mean converted? Brother man. Do you know who you're talking to right now? Do you know who you're talking to?
A convert.
The best part about being converted is you don't even know or think you are converted. That's like the highest level of indoctrination.
There you go. That's an accolade.
I decided on this. It's my original idea. That's the highest level of conversion.
Okay, so when Shy wins MVP this year, I'm going to say the same thing.
No shot, by the way.
Spark would have to be so good. Spark would have to be so good for Shy to do that.
Actually,
anyway, the second point, I do agree that Leave is outstanding enough. He's like the kind of jack of all trades, master of all kind of player that is so easy to build a team around from a utility standpoint, because once you have something like that can just fill any role, then you can start looking at specialists. Then you can start looking to build around. I think Lip to me is still pretty specialist for the most part. He's probably got a wider hero pool than a lot of other hit scans, just because the extra Sombra tracer in there is important. And the reason why I say, and most people are like, well, isn't that normal for hit scan? You'd think it would be, but you'd be surprised at how few hit scans actually play an effective tracer and or Sombra. And there's very few people that can play good Sombras. So, I mean, it also depends on what is going to meta. Like, Tracer's a fair chance that she ends up being meta at all points just because she's good. Sombra is a niche enough hero that she comes and goes. It really depends. So, and they've changed Sombra enough in Overwatch 2 that it's very difficult to tell where her place in the meta could be. I think it's like, she seems like she could be good. Like, oh, everyone said she was broken in the Overwatch League preview in the finals, but, you know, patch changes can make her viable or less viable, blah, 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 at any given point. So she's a very influx type of hero. I would never bank on, like, we need an elite Sombra player, because you're how likely is it you're going to get a Sombra meta? Yeah. In all fairness to Shanghai, they rolled pretty good dice in terms of meta RNG to get a Sombra meta. I'm not saying that's the only reason they won, but obviously it helps a lot. It helps a lot, because if it was a Ryan meta instead, who knows? Maybe Atlanta or Dallas could have been the better team. I'm just saying meta does play a big role, and they did happen to have the best Sombra player in the world on their team for a very specific Sombra meta, of which we haven't had a lot of Sombra metas. So you can't bank on, like, we got to get lit for the Sombra metas. Like, do you even know when a Sombra meta is going to come through? Like, it's so hard to tell. As a GM, that's not something you want to bank on.
The thing is,
but if you're rich, you just have them on your team anyway. What's your thing?
Like, I don't think, like, the reason Lip isn't considered a hyperflex is because he doesn't have to be. Like, once again, like, I feel like everyone, like, and that's true for Leaf as well, everyone sort of does shit that everyone else does. That's not true for Lip, bro. Like, his Sombra is very clearly above everyone else. Like, usually, like, for instance, in the Tracer discussion, right, which Leaf is definitely one of the best of, he's not, like, if you think he's the best Tracer, he's not far away from everyone else, bro. Like, and not everyone else, but the top Tracers, you know? By the way, I'm not convinced that if Lip was going to play Tracer the entire time, he couldn't do the same to Tracer than to everything else, because stats indicate, based on the 2 hours, that he is actually astronomically better than everyone else.
I have a little reservation for that, because I need to see more stats. I can't just be like, you can't just be a 2 hour 10-minute Andy on one hero.
2 hour Andy.
I don't think it was 2 hours, was it? It was less than that. I don't know. It was not a lot of time.
Eric, check.
Your stats even out. And also, here's the other thing. This is a bit of a chicken and egg scenario, but it's like, how much of farming good stats is because you're also on a good team that's just winning because you're better teammates as well.
Sure.
Now, the chicken and egg situation there is, well, the team also could be winning because you are good. You are what makes your team win, right? So there is a bit of a two ways to kind of look at that. The reason why the stats are more convincing for Leave is because you know that his team would be bad without him. You know that would be true. Whereas you replace Lip, who knows? Shanghai, you know, with another great hit scam, you'd definitely be lacking in the Sombra department, but I don't think Shanghai would be hurting an insane amount in comparison. Well, this is not going to be a Shanghai versus Chengdu discussion. We're like getting a little bit sidetracked here.
Yeah.
But trying to come back on the rails a little bit. Essentially where we're headed is, you know, to finish off, actually, I'll just say one thing. We'd probably be having a very similar discussion about Sparkle if we just came out of a Doom meta. If we just came out of a Doom meta, you could say, yeah, his Doom is just like way above everyone else. I mean, it's true. But we didn't get a Doom meta, so who fucking cares? It's like, and if we don't get a Sombra meta, who fucking cares? I don't care that he has a better Sombra than everyone if we don't have a Sombra meta. Because heroes like that, it's rare to see them in meta. Very rare. So, you know, but if you get a Doomfist meta, well done. Dallas just win. Give them the fucking trophy. It's finished, right? Heading back to Chengdu, back to Leave. Great player to build around. If you lose him, well, it's just a Pritter and Jimmy. So let's talk about the DPS line as a trio. We don't have Jimmy anymore. We don't have Taro Cookie anymore. And we are on probably this 3-player lineup for me is better than that 4-player lineup they had before.
Easily.
Where It was just messy. I don't even know what was going on there. They had a Tara Cookie
they
partway through. I don't even know what he was there to do.
Kaneki was on there too at one point.
Was he? Yeah, there was that. So that 5-player DPS lineup that they had was just not great. Aprita kind of does everything Tara Cookie, Jimmy, and Kaneki does together all in one person.
Yeah.
So
does them better.
Yep.
Probably.
Yeah.
Oh,
You have Leave, who's Leave, and then you have Jinmu, who on his very specific heroes dominates pretty hard. And but he still needs to really. The Sombra's good. It's just, you know, I don't know. When Chengdu were really popping off, I thought his Sombra was insane, but I don't know. They obviously had issues towards the end. So
this is a lineup in terms of their DPS where it's like Aprita, I think, is Rookie of the Year candidate. Won't win because there's that other Rookie of the Year that's coming in that's probably going to very easily take it. But like in a world where Proper doesn't get into like Overwatch League, I think Aprita is definitely probably
second
front runner.
Yeah,
I think second for Rookie of the Year. I think the dude is fucking cracked out of his skull. He's won 3 finals in a row in Chinese contenders, 3 finals MVPs in a row, and it's been on various different things. Like the problem that I had with Aprita going into this season this year rather, when it was Team Chaser, was I was like, okay, the Tracer's sick nasty. You've beaten Team CC, the best team in contenders in tier 2. You beat them with your Tracer because it was that good, and you were like just nuts. So like, what can you do beyond that? Okay, so he comes out. It's still relatively a Tracer meta at the start of 2021. You know, Team Chaser they're doing okay. Like they're not farming too heavily, and then the meta switches a little bit towards like I think Reaper started to become like a thing that they needed to play, like stuff like that. There was like Ashe, there was Cassidy, things like that were starting to come into play, and then Aprita plays those and plays them really, really well. And I think that he's gone from a player who was just a Tracer one trick to someone who is still extremely good at the Tracer. Like, don't get me wrong, I think his Tracer is, I don't know if it's better than, it's not better than, so I'm not go for that, but like it's up there. It's definitely up there. Sure. It's comparable to that. I think his Cassidy and his long range hit scan have gotten much, much better since the time that when he started playing. And he also has some like wrinkles that all the Chinese DPS players seem to have, where it's like there's just that one other hero that they can play really. So like it's like a not even a hit scan, like a flex or a projectile. So if like this is a player that if like comboed along with Leave, I think this is one of, if not the best DPS duo that's in the world between these two players.
How about just as a line? Let's talk bringing the whole line here, because
so the line. The problem with the line is that Jinmu has I would say 2 that he's like probably can be considered top 10 in the world at, if not just top 1. I think his Pharah is still probably potentially the best in the world.
Yeah.
And his Genji, while it's very fast and loose, and Joe remembers from Moss 7 Club how much we flamed him for this, but he can play a pretty gosh darn nasty Genji. So if they hit the lotto with like Jinmu's specific heroes, I think this DPS line easily top 3 in the world. If you kind of just like go overall, I think it's for sure top 5, because of the fact that I think Jinmu is pigeonholed slightly with the heroes that he can play. Because it's like, it's really good if it's those 2 heroes like the Pharah and the Genji. If it's not those, Jinmu loses a little bit of his potency, I think, in the DPS role.
Yeah, I would tend to agree. I would put a slight premium on Jinmu in particular. I think he fills what I guess we will end up calling the funny hero category. That I think a game like Overwatch 2 and everything that we're hearing about it, especially in the orbiting rumor mill of the Scrimbucks NFT fiat currency exchange.
Well, you can get Scrimbucks as NFTs now?
Hey, you might be able to.
That's coming. That's coming, 100%. I'm minting.
Non-fungible Scrimbucks.
No.
Yeah.
What have we done? We put
my Scrimbucks to own for me.
The metaverse is wild right now, by the way.
True.
Okay, we're not talking about that. That's a 2-hour discussion that Yiska is not allowed to start.
True. It's just going to end up with him having sex with robots, so it's okay.
Continue your point, Joe.
Anyways, Jinmu plays the funny heroes, and shut up. He plays funny heroes, and with how fluid Overwatch 2 could be, I think that's going to be useful, let's say. And yeah, I
fills the gaps
easily. Yeah, does a lot. It has a very poignant hero pool. Is a good gap filler.
The
Good-
thing
good
is, though,
trio.
I mean, it's a gap filler to an extent, but like, you have leave on you, so there's really gaps don't exist.
No, there
Well,
are gaps.
there are gaps. We saw that last year.
No,
Yes,
there's
because
a somber gap.
so,
Right.
no,
Well, no. There's
it's
just another
not a
player gap.
It's not a gap in what Leave doesn't play. It's the fact that Leave can only play one of them, and somebody else has to play the fucking other one.
True.
Mhm.
That's the problem, which is why a Predator on this team is important, because you now finally have a second tracer. Because between Jimmy, Tarakuki, and Kaneki and Jinmu, there was not a second tracer. So Leave had to. You want Leave to be your tracer play for one, but also if Leave plays a tracer, then no one can play your Echo. No one can play your. I guess maybe I guess Jinmu can play against you. No one can play your X other hero that you need, your second hero that you need.
Yeah.
And so what end up happening is you have these kind of situations where
I remember.
what were some of the situations we had? I mean, last year.
I know Jinmu had to play Torb at a couple of points when it wasn't like really that. I think that was like, specifically a Chengdu thing that I a lot.
Yeah, I remember him playing Torb. I do remember that as well.
The Jinmu Sombra was like the main one that they brought out a lot, which was like towards the start was pretty not great.
To be fair, it was a Tracer Sombra meta, so they did nail that. So in that regard, I think they did well. But there were actually a few points where, as far as we say, Jinmu's a fill the gap kind of player, there were a few moments last year that I specifically remember where Leave actually played around Jinmu and not the other way around. And those were specifically the fire maps that Chengdu really wanted to, like, pocket hard the fire. Fire is a win condition. And in that case, Leave was not their, like, ace in the whole player. For that, it was actually Jinmu, and Leave kind of played his hero pool, very flexible, obviously, around Jinmu and did things for the team that benefited the team around what Jinmu was doing primarily, instead of the other way around. That was one of the few times you see that.
Mm-hmm. The beauty of having a flexible player like that. It's a good thing to have.
That's the Leave Sombra, by the way. A few times I saw him get off Trace and go into Sombra, just to be a very low maintenance kind of player, low resource kind of player, so that Jinmu could just get everything. So there was that. Let's talk about the tank line. It's just one player.
Can I really quickly just comment on, like, does anyone also have this feeling of just like they are dopamine receptors in terms of like cracked DPS lines just being like very tired this season? Like, I'm looking across the league, and yes, in my mind, like, of course, Leave, Predator, Jinmu are nuts. And in every other season, my mind would go like, whoa, bro, that's like 10, 15% better than like 90% of the league, right? Now I'm looking at these DPS lines, and I'm like, I'm dopamine overdosing. Everyone is cracked now. What is happening?
Yeah.
It's because season one set the expectations so low, set the bar so low that now, like, we look at this like, oh my god, you're like a kid in a candy store and everyone's got good DPS. But that's how it's supposed to. That's what it should have been from day one. It's supposed to be the world's best players here. Like, what the fuck is the situation? How can there be any team that doesn't have good players? Is what it should be in theory. But that's how it has been in the past.
Just in your go into your mind palace, okay? And now we're once again in season 1, okay?
Yep. Hello, Clockwork.
And now imagine if the expansion teams were already there, and the DPS line that is playing against, like, Lynxes, one of the best DPS at the time, Now imagine the DPS line of Develop, Choisewan, and Eileen. What they would be doing to everyone but, like, Birdring and Profit, right? Like, and that is probably one of the, less proficient DPS lines in the league, right? In terms of APAC specifically, right? Like, it is actually insane what the level is, right? Like, I guess you would have to say, and we're getting to them, but like Dia, Innovation, Becky, or like, but even then Exy's in there, right? Like, shit's nuts, yo. Like, this year, and if it is actually as DPS dominant, bro, especially Hitscan, that shit is fucking like top of the line now. Nobody sucks anymore.
Yep.
Finally. We can generally, not just the DPS line, we can generally say that about every single team upgrading, which is what it's supposed to be. We're supposed to be, when you have the top level professional league, everyone's supposed to be good.
Yeah, but like you don't have Silver 3's Genji anymore, so like, what's the point of playing?
So speaking of the tank line, speaking of tanks, Gaga, the solo tank. Now, I think the understanding here is, and again, reiterate, very hard to talk about the whole roster implosion situation, but I'm fairly sure connecting the dots here in I'm still in my mind palace currently, Yiska, is that they obviously haven't signed another tank player because they're trying to cull players. They're not trying to sign more. They're trying to get rid of players, right? In terms of money. That's why they don't have a second tank player. So we're just going to assume it will remain one tank. It's only Gaga. He's going to play everything, including the off tanks and whatever new tanks come out. And he's just going to do it all.
I think there is a world where he doesn't play the Zarya. I think Leave plays Zarya. There is a world.
Oh, they do.
Bro, if Leave has to play the Zarya, then Jimmu and Aprita have to play whatever else the DPS needs.
Yeah.
And I promise you right now, no, it's not fine, because I can tell you right now, no matter what meta it is, you want your best DPS play on the DPS and not on the tank.
I think I think if you want, because I don't think Gaga's going to be that great at Zarya. If it's a meta where you can play Tracer and you need like Zarya with it, and it's like Tracer Genji Zarya, and you need like, I think Aprita can fill that gap. I think that putting Gaga onto Zarya, if he's like really not performing, I think there is a very good chance that Leave just goes and plays Zarya, which he's actually very good at.
I'm sure he's good at everything, but my real take, my real sort of insight here is what, in terms of what I know about how Chengdu operate, they would sooner play off meta than to do that, I think.
I don't think it's likely. I think it's a thing, though. I think it's a possibility that Leave, if Zarya becomes a like very strong tank and is like a necessity, I think
Zarya would have to be OP. She would have to be unbelievably good.
I'm not saying it's like a likely situation. I'm saying they do have this opportunity in their back pocket because of the fact that Leave can play it, which I think that like I think there are a couple of DPS who can do that just because of goats and like stuff like that. I think the best thing about Gaga was that Gaga was good at every main tank. I think he's good at literally every main tank that's exists right now, so they can cover that. Off tank is something that I think is going to be a struggle potential for him.
Can I just say, if what you're saying is so, here's the situation that gets painted in my mind. For that to happen, Zarya would have to be the most important here in the meta, so important that your best player needs to be on the Zarya, similar to where it was in Goats, where like your Zarya player had to be phenomenal. But if that was the case, then everybody would be putting their DPS on the Zarya. Proper would be playing Zarya on the Shock as well.
Well, did he play during Goats? Or,
he did play Zarya during Goats. Yeah, all those guys, all those DPS, Decay would be back on Zarya. Like every DPS, that wouldn't be like that would just be normal. I don't know. That to me, that wouldn't be like, oh, we have to fill for this guy because whatever. You know, I don't know if I'm explaining this properly. Basically, what I'm saying is like, for a situation where Leave ends up playing Zarya, it would have to be a Zarya meta where the DPS just plays Zarya anyway.
Yes. I think it is. So it wouldn't be a weird thing. It would be a very Chengdu thing for them to just like throw out some wacky shit and just be like, yo, we can just put. I think it's very unlikely that he ever steps into playing off tank ever. But like, it is something that I think that should be considered should Zarya become incredibly important. That there are DPS they're going to need to potentially play Zarya.
Agreed.
And while Leave is very like. I think Leave is extremely good. I don't know if losing, I don't know. It would have to be a situation where like, you're not going to lose as much between having the Prit on Tracer to you would lose to having Gaga on Zarya, which is potentially very not. Like that's where it would be a decision where I would be like, yeah, you might need to put Leave on Zarya because this shit isn't working out with.
Gaga would have to be. He would have to be real poo on Zarya for that.
He doesn't play any. He hasn't played any. He has not played
because he's never needed.
All the main tanks. Yeah, all the main tanks haven't played it.
That's
right. But there are other teams that have. There are other teams that'll just be like, okay, Zarya's meta. Let's put in space. Let's put in other off tank. Right. There are a lot of teams who can fill that gap. I think Gaga and I think Chinese tanks in general do usually have a very good understanding of how to play the other heroes. So I think, especially like if it's just like, you know. Any of the main tanks, I think Chengdu's.
What I'm saying is they all have to learn it anyway. All the current main tanks have to learn it. Yeah. I think you'd be surprised. I don't believe it will be a thing. Some teams will do this anyway. It's probably not going to be a likely thing that you're going to see like, oh yeah, now space comes in for Zarya and Rhino does this thing. It's definitely more. I shouldn't be using Glads as the example, but I'll just use them because you were saying space. I'm just saying any team. This is not specific to Glads. It's more efficient to have one tank player be your starting tank, one being the bench player, and your starting tank player plays all the tanks across the board.
Agree.
And they have to learn everything.
100%.
And so every tank in the league currently having to do that. If you are Piggy, you have to learn the main tanks. If you are, you know, another good example, Kellen has to learn the off tanks as well. Those are teams with only one tank, but even the teams with two tanks, you know, you're more likely this season to see a starting player and a bench player, and that starting player just plays everything. In my opinion, currently is what I have in my mind. And actually, there's a lot of teams that only have one tank. Chengdu only have one tank. Fusion only have one tank. Valiant only have one tank. That's 3 teams already. Smurf on Seoul. That's 4.
Valiant don't have a tank.
True.
They have a rumored tank. Houston only have Piggy. And Kellen on New York. That's already 6 teams. It's already Kaluge on San Francisco is 7. False and Titans is 8. 8 teams out of 20 only have one tank on their team currently.
Yeah, I mean, again with Gaga, I think it's just like, I mean, he gets the benefit of just like, I don't think he has to practice any of the other main tanks, so he can just spend the entire time just grinding off tank. I thought, like, based on what I was thinking, it would be more of like, this is the specialist for the off tank. Like, they're gonna go in when like off tanks are meta, and then, you know, swap whenever it just becomes that type of deal. Because
we got to the end of the last season, and it was very clear that, you know, first of all, objectively, the teams that were doing the least amount of substitutions were succeeding. That's not like a hard and fast rule that is always true 100% of the time. But from even, you know, insights into teams and what people are saying, I think I have to be careful about this. I think DP in some of the content has mentioned this as well. Just stuff like doing less substitutions is overall better for your team to build that synergy and to build the trust and to build the flexibility within your starting lineup rather than rely on a bunch of substitutions.
That's
totally.
That's the thing, though. Like last episode, we said like it's still not a bad thing to have a lot of players on the roster, because like you don't want to be in a position where you have to clobber your 6 together and put like nails into the marble. You want to like chisel it out of the marble block, right?
Yeah,
and like
you want to have more to start with to find your 6.
Yes.
To find your starting 5 within your larger group of players. Yeah. So Gaga is by default their starting tank. He's the only one.
And he's good. I mean, he's very good. He was very good last season whenever he was tank. I think that he was potentially the best ball that we had in the world.
Yes.
Besides Fate, maybe, because Fate had gotten so good. But
they got there. Yeah.
I think Gaga was right there as like best ball player that we had.
I'm ready for a world where Gaga is the best tank in the world.
Yeah, same. I think we'll see, but I think he'll have a better season than I think people expect.
Like that team sees the bloodline, man.
I don't remember seeing across either Contenders or Owl any Gaga Ryan. I'm not too sure what he's like on that, and that's mostly because Chengdu didn't play Ryan.
It's like it's in Contenders. It was okay. They had to play it for like a. It's not
because it's not.
He played it on LGD when like Ryan was important, and it was
right.
It was okay. I think Ryan is the worst out of all. I would
because Asian teams in general don't play less Ryan, and Chengdu in particular don't play Ryan. They just ignore Ryan as much as they can and go anything but Ryan. So, depending on how the meta is, if it's a very fluid meta, Chengdu will absolutely force dive tanks and dive heroes. I think they will suffer in like a hard set. You must play Ryan meta, like goats. Sure. If you're in a very, very, you either play Ryan or you're throwing type of meta, then Chengdu will be in trouble. Maybe.
Yeah.
But
would agree. I think even in that same like kind of perspective, there's definitely like there are avenues where Gaga and Chengdu, just like you said, they either force like dive tanks or they do some like weird off tank stuff that I genuinely believe people like Gaga of that class, main tanks coming into vogue post Wrecking Ball, have a different skill set than older main tanks, not in terms of age, but in terms of career length. That should, my opinion, transition better into these roles. So yeah, I think Gaga will have a pretty good season.
Hit up on the supports now. They are the only team in the league that have 4 supports.
True.
It's not uncommon this year to have 3 supports because a lot of teams are banking on double flex plus 1 main. But Chengdu have held on to all 4 of their supports from the last season, and they to what? What do you mean?
To the sport. Oh, well, we're just going to sports.
That's what I've already done. Yeah, I'm doing that currently. Kenobi's arrived with us at the support discussion now. 4 supports on this team.
Late.
Yeah, it's all right. There's extra buses at all times, late into the night. 2 main supports, 2 flex supports, who Chengdu last year even regularly changed up. You know, it wasn't. It was mostly, I would say, you'd have to say by default was Monk Yveltal as the starters.
Yeah.
Then Nisha, Faraway kind of came in. Nisha got a lot of game time actually. Faraway got minimal game time, but still received a fair amount.
Yveltal was catching up with Attack on Titan.
Towards the end for sure, or something. It's probably one of the most unique support lines in that any other team would just play 2 players and the third guy you'd never see if you had 3 supports. Here you had 4 supports, and they were regularly, liberally being swapped in and out across the season, and they've kept all 4 supports. Now we know, obviously, based on the Halo report, that at least 2 of the supports are likely gone, but I mean, let's just consider that if they did have 4, I mean, we can consider both variations. If they do still have 4, what does that mean? How do we like the support line with 4 players? I mean, is it just a repeat of last year where you just swap people in and out?
I think it's like a 2-2 thing where they just swap the pairs. Okay.
It's still mad.
But they weren't even locked in pairs. They weren't even locked pairs. We had Nisha Monk, you had Faraway, Yveltal. We've seen all variations.
Mostly it was most of the time it was Faraway Nisha, and it was Yveltal Monk.
Yeah, I would say so. But they weren't scared of even swapping.
Yeah, they would. I mean, there were times where they would, but I think going into, if it was 2, they're gonna just pick like either one of the pairs and then.
Unlikely. Yeah, I tend to agree with that. In general, I think they really can't go wrong. You really have to like break out the Marine MREs and your Crayola crayons to really fuck this one up. Yeah, I think overall, I'd like to see either pair or all 4. I don't really see a massive downside either way for Chengdu to waltz into Overwatch 2 with. I like either one. Cool with either.
I think that's the biggest redundancy, right? Like, you don't need Nisha and Yveltal on the same team. Like, you decide basically. Like, I think Yveltal, you can say, is probably the better player, even maybe not by much. But like, he's also the more problematic player, so you now have to like weigh that against each other. Maybe he had his like moment of clarity that he can't do that shit anymore. Last season, after being publicly called out, no idea, but you don't need both of those players at the same time, right?
Yep.
So I don't hate that. I think the double flex support always makes sense, especially because Kenobi, how confident would you be in Yveltal picking up a flex support?
Very low.
Yeah. So I think
he's a nuts Lucio player, but I mean, maybe Zen would be like the thing I'd feel the most confident, because it feels like that's the one that people, if you're a main support, you can, like, Zen seems to be the other one. Sometimes they'll play in terms of flex supports. Yeah. I think in a perfect world, they get rid of Yveltal, Nisha, and they keep like Faraway and Monk, because I think they're both very, very good. Both have their heroes that I think they're better than the other one at. Like, I think that Faraway Zen is really, really good. And because I remember in Gauntlet, like, he was consistently the best Zenyatta that we had, and I mean, like, in Korea too. Like, he was 1v1ing proper on Tracer. Like, that's how good he was during Gauntlet. And so, like, losing him would be unfortunate. I think Monk, though, on the Ana is like, I don't know what Ana looks like. Monk's Ana is fucking disgusting. I think it's really good. And I think if you switch them onto like the other like hero, where it's like if you put Faraway on Ana, if you put Monk on Zen, like, it's still fine. But those are like the 2 heroes that's like, which one do you think is probably going to be more important going forward that you probably keep on?
Just to be clear, Monk didn't. Faraway didn't play against Proper at all because Proper wasn't in the gauntlet.
Oh, sorry.
And-
Yes. It was the Genji Tracer.
Stalker.
Stalker.
Not
There
even
we
Stalker
go.
then.
Yeah. Sorry.
Which the community, shame on you, rated very lowly. So shame on you indeed. You'll see. Yeah, so very strong support line. If all cylinders are firing and people aren't going to bed in scrims and doing other shit in scrims that they shouldn't be doing, we're assuming we're like peak Chengdu back in, I don't know, Countdown Cup, they were peaking pretty hard. Summer Showdown as well, they were quite strong. The support line, one of the best in the world. Yveltal, when I looked at the Brig, when he was playing against Lip, he shut down Lip Sombra so hard in that Summer Showdown winners bracket final. Still, I think, one of the best games of last year. People overlook it because it's not a grand finals, but guys, I mean, it really was one of the best series of all last year. Simply, doesn't have to be a finals match. It can, winners bracket game, very important. Two of the best dive teams in the world, the two best ball Sombra Tracer teams in the world going at it, and you're just seeing the highest level gameplay. And I think that was the best of Yveltal Brig I've ever seen. It was so good that at that exact moment in time, I thought it was the best Brig in the world. At that exact moment in time, obviously, that's a peak, and you can't always play at your peak unless your name is Lee Jae-gon. Looking at the rest of the Chengdu, this support line, in theory, is really good. When I look at it in comparison to the other support lines, I'm trying to see who's do I like more. I still think I'd rather take Lee Jae-gon Izayaki as a two-piece over anybody. I mean, that's just an easy
anyone
choice.
in Shanghai is just like, they're all.
But beyond that, I think I'd take the Chengdu backline over anyone else's. I'm not seeing that many other in the Eastern Division anyway. I'm not going to talk about NA just
in
yet.
the East for sure. I think they're the best at the current.
Yeah.
Besides, Lee Jae-gon Izayaki, I don't think anyone has the same.
No, I don't think anyone else has a better support line than Chengdu. And I think that would be true even if they only had 2 players instead of 4 in that support line.
I'd agree.
Yep. Same.
Joe's right. They can't really go wrong.
You'd have to like actually pull names out of a hat or throw fucking darts at a board and end up with like
Nisha.
You're cutting both your flex supports.
Yeah, like, Nisha Yveltal is worst case scenario somehow if that's how we do this.
How the tables are turned. Last year preseason, Nisha gets signed. It was like, what the fuck? Why would Illusion be on a team? Why didn't they sign
True.
Dude. Okay, I mean, what he did, he got like an identity change, right? Where he's just like he left the Illusion stuff behind him, New
Thank
identity.
God. He leveled up. He evolved.
He cleansed himself of Illusion from T1W.
It was just an illusion. It was a mirage, right?
Okay, let's rank the teams. Kenobi, you kind of already did this at the start. You cheated, so you learned the rules now. We don't rank until the end.
Oh,
just give us your ranking. Where do you think this team will place in terms of
very easily a second place
in the Eastern Division?
In the Eastern Division, in World 5th, top 5.
Like 5 out of the number 5 out of the top 5.
Yeah, number 5 out of 5, the 5th one.
Just curious, who are your 4 above them then? And not in any particular order, just one of them.
Shanghai, Dallas. Atlanta. Who? Oh, Atlanta. And then
I don't know what your 4th would be.
Glads, I think, was my 4th.
Oh, you were very slow. I was like, I was waiting for the Glads the whole time.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, I'm just gonna let you all know. Glads are picking up leave. No, I don't know. They have the money to that.
They would be. Yeah.
They would be.
They
have. They both have the money.
Why would we play the season if they have leave Kepster, man? There's no point.
They both have the money to, and they're both like, fuck it, we'll do it. And you're just, why not? Just pull the checkbook out. He's available. Got the SoFi Stadium. Got infinite Cronky money. Fuck it. Get the MVP. Put him next to Kevster. Just see what happens,
Totally.
That would be poggers.
Would that be the biggest trade in Overwatch League history?
Yeah. What? Yeah. What? Getting the MVP?
Yeah, probably getting MVP across regions and probably not having him.
Of a pandemic.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest trade.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay, who's next?
Big topic.
Who's next?
You want to go?
Sure.
I kind of want to leak. Let me quickly leak. That could have not been that. There's a universe where that would have not been the biggest transfer in some senses that Glads would have made that season.
Very good. What a leak.
We get it. They were going after profit. We understand. I know
Exactly.
No.
Yes. Same brain cell. Same brain cell.
Higher market value.
Okay. Okay. Anyway, so I know who you're talking about. Anyway, back to Chengdu. So I think this is yeah, I would have said they're above Seoul for me, but below Shanghai still, which does put them second in the Eastern Division for me. I'd probably have them as high as top 3 in the world. Not even just 5.
I think they can.
I
mean, I think they can be right
top 3.
behind. They can be right behind Shanghai. I mean,
Yeah. If this team, we don't have a bad meta for Gaga, and this team is allowed to stay together in its current form, and they don't lose Leave, and Leave changes his name to Stay, then this team is really fucking good. They've literally upgraded from last year, and yeah, I mean the Chengdu were already like really pushing the envelope last year. I can only imagine them doing so. The only question mark is obviously the coaching, but we'll see how that goes. I mean, who knows? But post roster implosion, I don't know anymore. But pre roster implosion, looking at this roster,
top 5, baby.
top two in APAC, top 3 in the world. Even that's how highly I'd rate them.
I think top 3 APAC.
Ooh.
You think top 3 APAC?
I'm interested to hear yours because I'm just going to echo a lot of shit.
As in, you think they're third, or you think there's a likelihood that they could be third?
They're third.
Just again, their roster hasn't imploded yet in our magical world.
Yeah.
They still have everybody.
Who's
There's only one answer.
I already know who it is.
So
and if you
If
say
this is
Seoul,
Yiska
I'm
we're
gonna
talking about.
fly to Germany.
Let me
now.
Get to fucking at the airport, my friend.
Consider who Yiska's favorite player is and what team his favorite player plays on.
Buying a ticket right now.
Also Scrimbucks. But
It doesn't have unique thoughts. Can't think.
No, it's Seoul. It's of course fucking Seoul, bro.
Oh yeah. Okay. Whatever.
I mean, it very like I don't hate
real quick.
Go ahead.
Yiska, if you cash in your Scrimbucks, do you get profit? Do you make profit?
Oh, God.
Yes.
Certainly.
Thanks for having me on the show, guys. It's been a real good one.
That's my time, everybody.
I've had a lot of fun. I talked about Chengdu. That's I'm real good.
All you were here to do.
It's Apex Season 4 Grind Finals against Runaway all over again, my friends.
All right.
And then where in the world? Top 3 in APAC, and where do you think they'd be in the world?
Yeah.
Oh.
If their roster stays.
6th, maybe 5th.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm not that mad at that.
Very dejected. Okay.
I thought you would have learned after last season, but like, I guess I just. How many times do you have to teach you this lesson, old man?
What? Wait. I thought you're repeating my talking points from the season where they sucked, where they didn't have Ray. What gives?
I mean, because Dokebi's not on the team.
Right.
We have an actual coach now.
Yeah. Okay. We'll see.
Oh, Yiska knows
before
Dokebi's
coaches
coming back. Dokebi's coming back. That's what's going on.
Yeah.
He's like, there's a few fully done.
He's like, there's a few vacancies in the coaching staff. You know, Jay Field's gone. Creed's probably about to be gone. I might just step in. You know, he's back in.
Yeah, he can step back to fucking Rainbow Six. I don't want him in
I see it in Rainbow Six.
Well, no, I mean that's where
I get it.
Yeah,
I get it. It went over my head and then I caught it. All right. Chengdu for me, I agree with AVRL in terms of like ranges. I think there is a world where I can put them like confidently like top 3 in the world. I'm more confident putting them top 2 in APAC. And yeah, I would say anywhere from like 3 to 5th or 6th in the world is probably more likely. I have them currently in 5th, but that is a big caveat that I'm waiting to kind of cement myself. So
yeah,
we will see. But
don't annihilate us for.
I mean, we're kind of speaking into the void at this point. You know they're going to get your pitchforks. You know what to do with them. So it is what it is.
You know what my problem with saying 6th is?
Something about woeful.
No, that
blah, blah, Scrimbucks.
Once again, I have like it's every year, bro. That I think NA is good, and then it's just fuck. I deluded myself into thinking NA is good again.
Oh, that's some NA Andy thinking there.
Yeah, they're gonna
just nuts from a European.
They're gonna walk into some weird comp like ball comp where they just don't know how to play it and they're just gonna get fried.
They're gonna run their scrims purely on Rhine garbage, and then they're gonna get to dive stuff, and they're gonna be like, me not know how to play dive very well. Yeah, so you're
you're a real EU Edward over there. Hey,
EU Edward.
Yeah, just
Edward.
No, definitely not EU this season, my friends.
No, he's not. No, he's not.
So that is Chengdu. I mean, hopeful that they can keep everything together in some sort of fashion. As I said at the start of this, if they even just keep, 6 players plus leave, 3 DPS, Gaga, 2 supports, including leave, I think their season could still be okay.
Yeah.
I don't feel as great about it, but no, I actually would still feel okay with that. Losing 2 coaches does suck, though. That's kind of rough. Yeah. Really hoping for the best for a squad like Chengdu. Hard to rate them right now. So again, don't be one of those cringe dudes on the internet like, oh, Tactical Crouch said they'd be as high as top 3. It's like, yo, okay, we don't even know what their roster looks like. We don't know what the whole situation looks like. Can't rate them off anything except what we do know, which is what is official. So that's what this is about. So don't be one of those dickheads later on. Thanks to you for watching the Chengdu preview, and we're going to be watching. We're going to be going on to the next team now. We're going to be moving on to our second team in the order. Well, I've actually forgotten who was meant to be second. Someone remind me. It was Charge. Charge, was it? It was. So let me shift over some assets, and we're flying down from Chengdu to Guangzhou. I don't know where Chengdu is, but I know Guangzhou is very far south, so I assume you have to fly down. Fun fact, though.
You gotta fly down the rankings for sure.
Fun fact about
shooting
about Guangzhou is I'm pretty sure all the Chinese teams play out of Guangzhou because of ping reasons. So Shanghai actually playing Guangzhou, and I'm sure Chengdu playing Guangzhou as well. I don't know. I think Hangzhou are the only. I think Hangzhou do play in Hangzhou because they have the Bilibili facility there. But the other 3 teams play out of Guangzhou because of I think the internet there is good. That's what I've been. I can't remember where I heard that from, but I do know they play out of Guangzhou. Is what I know. So I know when the whole like flying saga happened, you guys remember? I think Atlantic and Plan and Dallas weren't too happy about it, and then Moon piped up. He's like, "Oh, we had to travel too," and then they kind of revealed that they flew in from Guangzhou or whatever. So that was some confirmation there. But yes, welcome to the TCP Guangzhou Charge 2022 team preview. Got a special guest here, brother in the bottom right corner, Kenobi, to talk about what is happening on the GZC, where long are we from that winning roster? Was it Summer Showdown 2020?
Yeah.
Long are we from that roster and that team and that
man,
and that title? We are now in. I don't even know where are we in the Guangzhou timeline. They are kind of in recovery mode from last year, trying to rebuild this roster. A real upsetting year last year where I think on paper their team was fine. A couple pieces didn't really land. Like Haley did not land where they wanted to. They were really banking on him being a very good player last year, and it didn't happen. To be fair, though, by the end of the season, they wouldn't have needed him anyway because we transitioned out of an Ashe meta into a Tracer Sombra meta, potentially Echo meta. So even if Mike Haley was really, really hot and really, really good, he would have only done so for maybe a stage or 2 like Shai was before Shai was forced to play other heroes.
Can I say before we do this? You motherfuckers who were like, Eileen's not good enough to be a DPS in APAC. Eileen's kind of washed. She's never gonna be able to beat a Genji like Flutta.
I'm still this guy.
He's just flashy in the pan.
Yeah.
Get the fuck out of here.
Why?
That was godlike performance. All right, that's all I wanted to do.
Okay.
MVP of Summer Showdown, by the way.
Okay.
Which year? 2020 Summer Showdown?
2019.
19?
No, it wouldn't be. It'd be 2020.
Talking about 2020. He's talking about 2020. Anyway, so we have.
I just need to get that out to like vent.
Okay. We were going to get to you, Kenobi. Don't worry. We were going to get to you. I promise you this wasn't going to be a full 30 or 40 minutes of like, Kenobi's here, but he won't say anything. So you were just going to be the screen cap of a face, just like the still image of a face between Yiska and I. Okay, what's actually going to happen is just going over. So the team is Eileen, Choice One, Develop, Rio, Krong, Unique, and Molly, with Sungwoo, Extra, and Youngjin on their coaching staff or their support staff. Now they had a real rough situation with their supporting staff. I don't know if you guys watched Guangzhou Charge released this kind of content last year that went behind the scenes, following the players around, especially when they went to the live events because homestands were in China last year, and very good content going over kind of their struggles. Now, no one sets out to make that content. That's the type of content you pivot into when you're like, oh yeah, we're going to do some team content this year, gonna follow the players around and capture us winning. And then when you start losing, it's like, oh, well, we'll pivot the storyline a little bit. And the narrative is now like, oh, well, look at the struggles and all that kind of stuff. We've seen that before, but I do like that content. I really appreciate the team at the Guangzhou Charge for being willing to share that kind of content. It's not easy. I get it. You know, most teams don't want to show the world losing. They want to show the world winning. So Eddie Meng, CEO, I just name you because you're the head honcho to me. Well done. Thank you for putting out that type of content. It's very insightful. And what we saw was, if you didn't watch it, you should watch it. It's on their page on the YouTube. But essentially, what we saw was a lot of struggle in terms of trying to keep their team morale up through all of the coaching staff changes. Arachna was gone partway through the season. They had Extra, who was from their, I think, academy team from Ultra Prime, one of the best brands in gaming, in my opinion, who was basically solo coaching the team when they had no one else. And this was a guy I think he was pulling double duty. Was he pulling double duty with Ultra Prime and Guangzhou? I'm not too sure. Or he was taken off of Ultra Prime to do Guangzhou, but he was kind of just shoved into a bad situation. You know, he has to try and salvage and try and build up this team who was losing from nothing after they had Mike Haley basically flop out, and I think he wasn't removed anyway.
He went back to academy.
Yeah, where I believe he actually did reasonably well, so good on him for that. And then Extra had to kind of pull a lot of weight to get that underway, and then what you had was Sungwoo eventually coming in, but he was still unable to get into the country because there was a whole visa process, so he was kind of coaching from remote while Extra's there in person trying to help them out. And then I believe in the last one or two matches, Sungwoo finally arrived in Guangzhou to start coaching, but the season was over. So it's a really tough situation. And also, I don't know what happened, but they had Jihun on the roster, who's like a kind of a ball main from London, and then they just never really used him. They just used Rio the whole time anyway. I don't know exactly what happened there. So they just had a 6-man roster because they didn't have Mike Haley anymore. Jihun never got played. Don't know what happened to him. So it was just Eileen, Choi, Krong, Rio, Mandu, and Kareev. And they struggled. So now they rebuild. I just named their current roster. It looks like it should be a more I don't know. I hope it's a more stable roster. You know, I trust a lot more than Mike Haley. And I think Molly got underutilized on Shanghai, but it is Shanghai. You're never going to get playtime over Iziaki. And Unique comes in from Contenders as, you know, a reigning champion from Gauntlet from the time Element Mystic playing next to Sparkle, but also someone that just came from T1 who played exceptionally well in Contenders' career. So, a bit of hope for this team. What are your macro thoughts?
It's another one of these teams that, like, you place them in a vacuum, and I genuinely think they check a lot of the boxes for me. However, and it's a sad but. Not a nice but. It's a sad but.
So
it's
not a perky round but. Okay.
Nope, it's sad. Gotcha. When you look at the rest of the league, it just kind of doesn't measure up. And if I'm going to be honest, and I know this is probably a little unfair just because I may be overblowing this, I'm not confident, let's say, in what is going on with Choi. I think Choi Sae-won in general is like, I was excited to see him in Overwatch 2. I was excited to see him with this like new lineup, and to hear that he is injured, he had to leave. That whole logistic thing doesn't strike me as something that you're going to be able to count on the entire season. I hope I'm wrong. I hope that isn't the case. I want to say that this is a team that can move up the rankings by the time power ranking season really kicks off. I just don't know that that's the case. I like it on paper. I like all the boxes. It just doesn't do enough.
Just to clear up something really quickly, Choi Se-hwan, as you kind of mentioned this already, but Choi Se-hwan is announced to still be in Korea for medical reasons. Could potentially miss games. Maybe he still ends up playing. Hard to tell. So they've potentially lost Choi, who was maybe their best player last year. Maybe.
Yeah. And that's a big blow. Again, it's a big maybe to wonder if he does play. It sounds like, again, word on the street, it sounds like he's playing quite a bit. I just don't know if that continues all season. Let's put it that way. You don't want to stress an injury. We saw what happened with Erkey. I won't try to prescribe what happens with Choi. It's just a liability that I'm not necessarily super confident in. However, I want to like this team a lot, man. If like any other season, this team actually kind of slaps. I think the coaching staff works. It's so tough. That's my thoughts.
Okay, next person who wants to comment Macro.
I mean, Macro, I think this team is. If Valiant were around, I think they're the last team in APAC, but they're down there for sure. I can't speak as much to like the talent coming in. I know Unique is very good from what I've heard like through the grapevine. I think Mali people forget how good he actually was back when Chengdu was like actually kind of okay before he went to Shanghai, because he was playing behind Izayaki, and I think that he's a pretty decent upgrade for this team. It's just Joe's kind of right where it's like you look around and like there are a lot of really, really good squads, especially in APAC, that it's hard to like, even if you're mid, you're at the bottom. Like this team, I mean, if this team went to like NA, I think this team probably
this team slaps.
This team is very good in NA, like in the West, but like fortunately you're stuck in a region where there's only 7 teams and they're pretty much all really, really good. So it's just an unlucky situation for them. I think they're doing the best that they can with what they have, and I think what they have is good. Not good enough to, really compete potentially. Unless it's like a Genji meta and Eileen again just fucking goes bonkers like he did before, but even then it's like, I don't know. It's hard with this team. They have to really hit the jackpot in terms of like a meta or like a lineup that really, really sneaks them into like a stage.
Yeah.
Okay. Yiska?
I think they shouldn't feel thin, but they kind of do. I'm not sure. Like, it's a little weird. Like, a lot of those guys, in my mind, have like either played at some point, were like considered some of the best in the league, or had the potential to be. And now I'm like, what's going on here, right? I think this is definitely an upgraded team, but man, I'm skeptical. Yeah. I think Charge generally always wanted to have like a theme behind their or an idea behind their roster building approaches. This just feels pretty cost effective while still being I think like the pieces they kept, I can see why they would. I can't see like direct upgrades probably in their likely price range. I think they were trying. It sounded like every once in a while, like some Western person, either coach or player, comes out and goes like, "Yeah, visa issues." So it's interesting. Like I'd love to know just like what their ideas were when building this team, but it just feels. It's not even mean and lean, right? Like they have one more player for each role, and other than support. And I think that is pretty smart. I think that's probably the best if you want to have 7 players, the way they did it. But I'm not sure, man. Like, yeah, I think this. I can't even really like explain why I would think they are last in APAC. I think I just trust like the coaching of Valiant more, especially in a new game environment where we presumably and it is volatile. Like the meta is volatile, and like it's going to continue being volatile. We're going to have content injections, presumably. We're going to have balance injections. We're going to have people much more willing to be agile on the spot. I think like that's where coaching value is probably amplified, unless you have a very like player-focused team that actually is smart about coming up with stuff. But yeah, there's not much where I think, okay, so like I'm looking at your performances last year, like what really changed that I now should start believing, you know?
Well, it's hard because the rest of the field leveled up, right? I think if Valiant remained really bad, you'd be like, oh, I mean, Charge just feed on Valiant again, no issues. But everyone in seems to have pretty good rosters. Debatably, Fusion has a worse roster, but you know, the Charge will have to fight to catch up to that still. Zooming into the team a little bit as we move things along, let's focus on the DPS line. Eileen Choi developed with the consideration that Choi is going to be potentially not playing as many games, at least at the start. So maybe their best player from last year, quotation marks, is out for the time being. Choi was really important for the Tracer beta that they were in, or that everyone was in. And they were one of the few teams that really, really forced the Genji. Like, they loved the Genji. Any opportunity for the Charge to play the Genji, they would last year. They don't necessarily lose that, but they do lose it from Choi's hand. I think he was their key Tracer Genji dive player, and actually Echo player as well, I'm pretty sure.
Yep.
Whereas Eileen filled mostly hit scan last year. Now, Eileen is, in my opinion, flexible enough to fill both projectile and hit scan, or at least flex and hit scan, but he's probably more known for the hit scans. Now, you have Develop in the squad, who is obviously a hit scan specialist. That plus Eileen creates an interesting dynamic, and I don't necessarily mean interesting in a good way, because they've lost their key projectile flex player in Choi for the time being. So now you've essentially got two hit scans where Eileen probably has to try and flex onto other things to fill the gap, unless we're in a double hit scan meta.
Eileen's been before a projectile player.
Yeah.
I
don't know how highly I rate it these days, especially with like the level of play.
Because because he's been playing hit scan, but this is like he back in Contenders when he was there was very much like the counterpart to Shy, who was the hit scan. So
LGD,
he still
baby.
got it. Like he still got like the hits. I think he still has like if it's like if it's like a Genji meta, I think he can definitely. I think Choi was very good, but you have to remember Eileen how good they were.
He's had to play around this team in terms of what the team needs. Because
definitely.
Last year, Choi was your projectile player.
Yep.
And so Eileen had to end up being a hit scan player because that's what the team needed. Now, he's probably going to shift the other way, where Choi's gone, Develops here, and Develops a hit scan player. So I think Eileen's is going to have to shift back to being a projectile. So he's kind of in this kind of weird topsy-turvy land where he can't just kind of focus on a role. And I don't think he is profoundly as talented as Leave to just have mastery over both anyway, that you can just like, who cares?
Yeah.
I think, Eileen has had to kind of seesaw back and forth between a couple of different things, which is probably difficult to do as a player at the best of times. Certainly for normal players. I think he's better than people give him credit for. I think a lot of fans are not big on Eileen.
I think
he's mostly
like one of the most underrated players. I think that's in the league.
He definitely is underrated as hell, and part of that is due to Guangzhou's lack of success. So you definitely look poorly upon most Guangzhou players if the team does not succeed. People, I think, are much more willing to give Krong the benefit of the doubt. We're going to get to the tank line in a hot second here. Any final thoughts on this DP? Why don't we talk about Develop a little bit as well, because we haven't really talked about him. He looked really good in Contenders. Has the Tracer, has the hit scans. Main heroes would be Ashe and Widowmaker, probably Widowmaker, one of his key picks. Obviously only played one game with the Shanghai Dragons, considering any bench play for Shanghai is almost never going to get a game. Can't really base his performance in Shanghai off anything. Yeah, got a free ring though, got a free championship. Take that. So did Molly. Technically got 2 world champions on his team between Develop and Molly.
He's a T1 or no, a Talon boy, right? Develop.
He is a Talon guy. Yeah, he was on the Talon roster and left halfway through last year to join Shanghai as a substitute. And it looks like a lot of Guangzhou is just kind of, they just steal the substitute players from Shanghai, just like bring them down.
Hey, that's not a terrible strat.
Filter your. So Bebe's next. Watch out for Bebe on the Guangzhou Charge next year.
That might be a downgrade, if I'm being honest. But that said,
that's not a might. That's a down.
That is a downgrade. And I'm a Bebe apologist.
Spade right there, dude.
When it comes to DPS, I think if we're to like put Choi on like the injured reserve list, and you just look at what Eileen and Develop can do, I think they can be competitive. I don't think they'll get necessarily gapped too difficult. I think there are maybe even some metas that they could actually shine in.
Genji.
Yeah, pretty much. And like that's kind of it. I'd like to see exactly how Eileen adapts to something like an Echo, maybe if there is a Pharah meta, but that seems a little rough. They have potential. I think they can compete. You'd rather have Choi, if I'm gonna be honest. Like that's kind of be the narrative, is like, is Choi able to play? And if he is, then this roster genuinely has a shot to battle for mid. And if he isn't there, it's dire straits, pretty much. Not good.
Cool. All right. Let's take a look at the tank line now, where, as I mentioned previously, people are probably a bit more forgiving to Krong, even though I think the Krong stocks have been falling a little bit.
Yeah.
We'll be interested to see what happens in the solo tank meta. And a really interesting thing is, in the off season, I can't remember what the contract status of both Rio and Krong were, but they've both been kept on. A lot of faith in Rio, if anything, to be honest with you. He didn't look great last year, but I guess he's capable. I mean, the Charge certainly think that way. So there is that. You'd have to probably say Krong most likely gets more playtime, meta depending.
Yeah.
But even then, I think he's probably the better player to invest in.
Yeah.
I think Krong as like an entity, we've kind of like, because there's like this narrative, because he started out really strong. Like, let's like to be completely fair to him, he started out like incredibly strong with his debut, and like the couple of first times that we saw Krong were like, Krong very good, and is this player that is almost like soft carrying, I would say Guangzhou is. I think a lot of the narrative around it was, and then like he's tampered off significantly. So I think it's a bit of a whiplash, because like he started so good, and it's been like just like it's been down. He hasn't been the same like Krong we saw him when he first got here. So was that just like really good? Like, was that like the peak of Krong, and then it's just like kind of like we're going down to like the tampered plateau of like where he is an average player, or is like, can he get back there? Because if he can get back there, like again, this team looks like much better, but like Krong needs to probably find, because I don't expect Rio to be the one to really pop off on this. So it has to be Krong, I think.
Just confirming as well, Krong and Rio were under existing contracts, so they were retained under their current contracts. So there's that.
Okay.
Yeah, I think if I had to nitpick, I've also been a Rio apologist for a long time. I think he is a workhorse, but we're at a point in the league now where it just isn't going to cut it. And to use AVRL's kind of line of logic earlier, like, you don't want to be doing a ton of substitutions just in general. Throughout the history of Overwatch, a ton of substitutions doesn't necessarily make for a great team. You don't want a rigid DPS lineup. You don't want it like a really flexible, crazy Houston style. Sometimes it's Repel, sometimes it's Raucous. It just doesn't, it's not cohesive, right? You don't necessarily want to have to do that. Ideally that would be fantastic. That's just not how people work. So looking at Krong, looking at his skill set, looking what he did with Sigma in those previous, points of history, like, Kenobi mentioned, he can be a playmaker, right? He has mechanics. He can kind of influence the game to a degree that like some of like the highest rated flex tanks can do. I trust and believe that he's probably going to be the starter no matter the hero. And if I'm going to be completely honest, I would like, and this is like my only line, to see Charge genuinely like punch above their weight. I kind of want to see them give him the ball. I want to see Krong given Sigma. I want them to be doing some wacky, crazy stuff. Like, I like creativity for this team in general. I kind of wrote about it earlier with like the whole Choi situation. I think that can push them into some like bold picks to kind of shake things up. Be that Chengdu-esque team, be wacky, be unpredictable, do some off meta looks to try and like eke out some wins. And I think that can be done off the back of Chrome.
Final thoughts from Yiska?
Yeah, I think the problem is like, okay, tell me a hero you're confident in. One of the tank line on Guangzhou Charge could be top 5 in the world that isn't Sigma. Go.
Can't.
Krong, Zarya, maybe. But then again, there's a lot of desires.
I don't know.
Let's forget about top 5 in the world. Let's just talk about in APAC though. Like, are they? Who do we? Is there a tank line that we think Krong and Rio? Well, there's a few that we think they're worse than, but who are they better than? They're worse than Fate Void. We'll just get that out of the way.
Well, the Valiant one.
Are they worse than? Are they worse than
Gaga?
Solo Smurf? Solo Gaga?
Yeah.
Who would you take? Who would you take? Krong, Rio?
Oh, I think he's worse than Solo Gaga for sure. Solo Smurf. We'll probably get to that one. I would have to.
Yeah. That one's a tough one. That is a tough one. I think that might be a hot take, but I don't know.
Is this a middle of the APAC tank line?
This is a bottom of the APAC tank.
You think so? Worse than worse than Solo Fury, worse than the triple hung.
Bottom half, I guess. Let's say bottom half.
Okay,
I don't
that's
know,
pretty
like,
safe. I don't mind that. Bottom half, I'll say.
Yeah.
I'll say that. Okay, it is a little concerning though that we do think they're worse than potential other solo. But then again, with Solo Smurf, I mean, he's goated. Fury's a very strong tank.
Yep.
And I think Gaga proved himself as well. So yeah, maybe. Let's talk about the supports then. Do we like the supports more? Are we high on Molly?
I do like to be high on Molly.
I think he was, and I don't know what he's been like. I don't even remember when he played for Shanghai because those were games that like literally
toss maps. Yeah.
But people need to remember that like this guy like was really really good on Chengdu, was really good on LG Huya, was like the only part of that team besides Merit who they just lottoed to win and got to Gauntlet again. He was the only person when they went internationally that performed well on that LG Huya. And everyone else shat the bed. So like if Molly can recapture, and this is a conversation we'll have about Coldest later, if Molly can recapture kind of the play and like the level of play that he had when he was, starting on Chengdu, when he was back in LG Huya, then like this is for sure an upgrade over Kariv, like instantly. Yeah. So I think that this is a very good get for the Charge. Unique, I can't speak as much to. I don't even remember if he played last year. Is that?
He played for T1 last year.
T1, okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know too much about Unique, but Molly for sure, like this is a player that I think can be very good for the Charge. As an upgrade.
I think Unique has been kind of a player from that Element Mystic core that's been a bit of a long time coming. I felt like they all probably should have made Owl at some point. And the only player that actually hasn't is Alpha. I'm not too sure what happened to Alpha. Takayaki even made it, and he was the bench tank. So it was that. Unique didn't make it. I'm not too sure what happened there. And Unique had to kind of climb his way back through the rest of contenders. And I believe that there was even a point where he stopped playing for Element Mystic. I think he wasn't even on EM anymore. He was on, that Team Diamond team. So he wasn't even on the new Element Mystic. I'm not too sure what happened there. But he both didn't get to Overwatch League and also didn't continue playing for Element Mystic during the short amount of time that Element Mystic still remained. Because again, that organization eventually exited contenders altogether. And I think exited esports altogether. But T1 was good. He was at least on the good T1. Because there was a bad T1 in 2020 and there's a good T1 in 2021. He was on the good T1. Now,
gotta make sure we know.
It's hard to judge him because main support players, obviously, hard to tell what they're doing the best of times. Which is why, by the way, when you talk about players like Chorong, it's so amazing because when you can see a main support just being very active and doing things tangibly, it's like, whoa, holy crap. But most main supports expect them to be pretty invisible. Unlike Overwatch League, you don't get POVs. I can't just go and look at a POV of Unique.
Right.
So based off feeling, I think I'm happy to give him the thumbs up from being a part of that T1 roster. I don't think there were any weak members on that T1 roster. Certainly there weren't any gaps that I could see. Not like a super exciting prospect like Chorong, but again, it's main support. Like it's just hard to tell. It's very hard to tell. So Yeah, I mean, I think his stocks would have been higher if T1 didn't have to pull out of playoffs last year. And again, for those that don't know, T1 pulled out of playoffs because of COVID-related reasons, and I think their team, certain parts of the team had gotten COVID or something like that, and they literally couldn't play. So they, pulled out of playoffs entirely when I thought their team was good enough to potentially make the finals versus O2. So, take with that what you will. If they did make the finals, win or lose, I think most of the T1 players' stocks, including Krillin, including Unique, their stocks would have been quite a lot higher than they currently are. But I think this is a reasonable pickup, maybe one of those more quieter pickups that people aren't talking about, which is understandable. It's not a particularly hype pickup, but I don't think anyone should be down on this pickup. This is a pretty neutral pickup from my POV.
Yep. I think just judging the support lines in APAC, I don't think it's too crazy to say that the Charge's support line is competitive at the mid-level, if I'm going to be completely honest. I think they can, just at a skill level, I think they challenge the likes of Seoul. I think, if I'm going to be completely honest, I think they're better than Philly's backline. And I quite like Spark's backline, but I don't like their management. That said, I think Charge's just backline's pretty all right, pretty good, can compete.
One important note brought up by Eric was that Jin, who is currently the head coach of Philadelphia Fusion, who was the head coach of T1, who did promote MN3 and Zest, actually chose Fixer over Unique, which is quite interesting.
Yeah,
that's there's that. I'm not gonna read into that too far because I don't want to just randomly insert conclusions and jump to things.
Sure.
I'm not gonna knee jerk that hard. I'll just take that with a pinch of salt and
it would be fun though.
Along. Speaking of moving along, let's finish up by just kind of placing this team. Now, sounds a little bit like sad boy hours. Now, we all agree this is a better team than last year.
Oh, without a doubt.
We agree
easily.
Yeah. So given that, where are you putting them, and why is it still so low? Someone go.
I mean, it's difficult. Like, when you look at just domestically, right? You look at APAC, you look at how, and as much as, we're going to get into the Spark, just you wait. That team on paper is a supercar, right? That team is nuts. You look at Chengdu, that team is nuts. You look at Seoul, that team's cracked. Shanghai needs no introductions, right? The Charge preseason, right? And then the off season, Choi's injured. The caliber of players they have is already like reason to like draw subject or suspicious eyes, right? And then there's the Valiant. I don't like putting them this low. I do think they can be competitive. I think they are a better team than they were last year. I think this is not a bye week team. This is not a resident sleeper. Don't pay attention. Don't watch the VODs. You're going to want to tune into the Charge. They are going to be a dynamic. They're going to be competitive. But I can't in good faith tell you that they're going to be better than somebody like the Spark, right? I have them second to last in APAC. And in general, right now, I have them like anywhere from like 14th in the world to peaking maybe in the low teens, maybe 11 at like the peak meta. Eileen's on some crazy horse pills, some horny goat weed. I don't know. He needs to be doing some crazy shit.
Real quick, you said second to last from APAC, so who's last?
Valiant.
Oh, no.
Okay. So just above Valiant is where you think they are.
Yeah.
Yiska sounded disappointed by that.
I have the same. I have them at 6th in the East. I think if this team was in the West, I think they'd be top half for sure. I think this team would do pretty well.
At least 10th place. Wait, at least 7th-ish place in NA then.
Oh, if they were in NA, yeah, I think they'd be pretty good. I think they'd beat a lot of the teams there.
I don't hate that.
And
so then, seventh would be like maybe even better than Boston.
Yeah, I know.
Just so we're clear.
Yeah, I'm totally fine with that. I actually think that's no,
that's not that great.
Let's go. Guangzhou, the peak of this team is like if they just like nut and hit the lotto, where it's like Eileen Genji or like Choi Se-wan Genji or like whatever. Everyone just hits like we get a Sigma meta for Krong. We get Molly on Zen. Everyone just hits their like best hero possible. I do think that this team could potentially get like second. Like I think that
In APAC.
on paper in
Interesting.
APAC, yeah. If they
shit.
like hit the lotto and they like get every single one of their players on their best hero, I think this team can be second.
So you would need a few things. You would need A, Chengdu's roster implode heavily, which might happen, and B, you would need Seoul to just shit the bed again. Who knows?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I think based on the players,
need Fusion to be bad. You need Jin to be like, fuck, we should have gone unique. Damn it, I was wrong.
That's what I'm saying, dude. I'm saying if they just luck out and hit like the best heroes that they can on every one of their players, they'll get second or third or something like that. And then I think overall I have them like 13. In the
Problem for me is even if they hit the best on their heroes, I mean, there's other teams with players that are also great on those heroes.
Exactly.
Yeah, but we've already done this. We did this in Summer Showdown. We did this with Eileen in Summer Showdown, where everyone is like, Fleda's on the other side. He's going to be playing Genji. Person's on the other side. They're going to be playing Genji. And then Eileen literally just carried the entirety of Chengdu. So, like, we've done this before. It's possible.
Oh, Chengdu.
Oh, sorry.
You know what you
mean
meant.
Guangzhou. I know what you meant.
I was
gotta clear it up. I gotta clear it up because the Guangzhou fans like, he carried Chengdu.
Yeah.
No, he will carry Chengdu because you don't know about this, but Eileen and Leave are being traded. So he will be carrying Guangzhou.
Wouldn't that be a dream?
I wonder who'd win that one. I wonder.
Yeah, whose team would beat whose team in that trade? I actually don't know. Hypothetically. Okay, so
imagine. Yeah, go on. Sorry.
What?
I
was about to talk. You had a tangent. Go on. I'll give you one tangent. You're
okay. Here's a tangent. Imagine you're allowed to, like, your mom took you to the toy store and went, just one toy, and you're like,
definitely a tangent. This is definitely a tangent.
Yes,
like,
it is. Yeah.
No, I'm bringing it around. I'm swerving. Okay.
I'm gonna go to the
so you're like, fuck, I need the highest value toy, right? Now, it shouldn't necessarily be the one that's the most expensive. It should be the one that brings you the most joy, or So, if you were to pick one toy from the Chengdu Hunters toy store, which toy would you pick? And don't say Leave. That would be, oh, come on, you boring asshole.
all of the other things they have covered. There's literally no reason.
No, I would pick Gaga.
Well, they can't. Okay, Gaga's wasn't mentioned.
For who?
Right.
Gaga for who?
Yeah.
Who do they get if you get Gaga?
A toy store is not an exchange unless your mom
it's a
bought it.
monetary exchange.
So yeah, you exchange money. So you're saying you just buy him and you pay money and then
Herbalife money.
They just
you pay the salary.
Peach the fuck out of this guy and just tank him. He's like, he's ours now. Okay. Your princess is in another castle. This is our main tank. Thank you.
All right.
Right. So is it just that Leave? Really?
Yes.
What? Yeah. What?
Are we having this discussion? This feels.
I don't think it's Leave. I don't think it's Leave.
You think they take a Prita?
Okay.
No,
I'd be cool with that too.
He said Gaga.
Yeah, hypothetically, if you can take Gaga, you take Gaga. That's the biggest upgrade that you could make from that roster.
And that you're allowed that opinion.
What? No.
Yeah.
No. You're not about to tell me that Leave isn't a better upgrade over Eileen, Develop, and Choice A1.
Hey, I like the spice.
Upgrade that you get over Krong to Gaga.
I like it.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I'm saying.
Sure.
I joked about Eileen and Leave being traded for each other, and here we are now. Okay, yeah, I regret my decision.
Yiska's high on Molly right now. Like, no,
I'm in a toy store. I'm in a toy store.
Okay.
My man's in a toy store. He's having an illusion.
I'm gonna be real. In a world where Choi is out for medical reasons and can't play, Lee would be a fucking insane player in that position. Anyway, stop overdosing Guangzhou on fantasies. Right? They're having wet dreams right now of having Leave on their team, and they need to wake the fuck up.
True. Wake up, Samurai.
So what I'm doing, we got an APAC to burn. I'm gonna feed some copium after just taking the copium. I'm gonna feed a little bit back and a little bit of hopium back in, which is that I'm not as down on Guangzhou as everyone else. I'm not just talking about you guys. I'm talking about just generally.
Yeah.
Not that down. I'm not as down on them. First of all, I have them. Okay, I'm down in some ways. I'm down in the way that I think they could actually be 7th, and Valiant and Valiant could be ahead of them. But I'm also on the flip side. extending my range both ways. I'm extending my range downward to go down to 7th, but I'm also extending the range upwards to go as high as 4th APAC.
Okay. I'm not mad at that.
Okay.
As high as 4th.
Yeah.
And if Chengdu completely shit the bed of the roster, then still 4th.
Okay.
So and still 4th. Yeah, I can see it. I could see them being better than Fusion. I could see them being better than Spark. I could see them being better than Valiant. I could also see them being worse than all three of those.
Yep.
But I think they're comfortably in that tier. Depending on what happens to Chengdu. Chengdu could join that tier and just completely shake everything up, but we don't know yet. So for now, I'm willing to say 4th, 7th there. I'm not going to bother commenting on where I think they'd be in NA. That's just getting a little bit too speculative. So I'm just going to refrain from going that far. So Yiska, you were a little bit upset that Joe put Valiant last.
Yeah, I don't think Valiant's last. I think.
Yeah, tell me that team without the tank is going to be very good. Yeah.
I don't know who the tank. I know who
They're
the
gonna
rumored
have a
tank
tank
is.
I'm sure they will.
Tank is.
I'm sure they will.
I know who it is, and I still think they're last.
That's fine.
Yeah, it's their rumored tank assassin. That's their tank. What else? What?
Is No Hail tanking? Are they pulling in New York?
Hey, you said it, not me, bud. You said it, not me. If that's where you want to lay your head at night, then by all means, go for it.
Nice.
Go back to Guangzhou, Yiska. Talk about Guangzhou, please.
Right. I think like this team is fine to do bad. I don't hate them for doing bad, but like if they at all outperform Spark this year, this is a huge dub, and I'm celebrating on the carbs of the Spark with them. And I'm quietly cheering for that.
Yiska, you just gave me you just popped off some real London energies. Like, I don't care how well we do, as long as we beat Paris, that's all that matters. That's some real London Spitfire energy you put out there.
Yeah, I mean, we're spiteful over here.
Mate, I could go 1-23 in my scoreline this year, but if that one is versus Paris, then we won the season.
Yeah, no, I think they are likely to be last place in APAC.
Interesting. We will see.
So okay. Remember, for the people wondering, and we're going to get to the Valiant in a future episode.
Yes.
But just as a preview of that, I know Yiska's got Valiant pretty high. Yiska's putting Valiant much higher than you think.
No. Oh no.
He's on crazy.
Not too high.
Argument.
Look, I'm always like, every team is in a super position of first to last until I get my scrim.
Yeah,
bucks,
we know.
Okay.
Exactly, because you can't think for yourself. You need to have your NA Andy coaches that couldn't fucking.
Dude, induction doesn't work. Induction doesn't work. It's all about empiricism, bitch. It's making, like, I'm a good Bayesian here. I'm starting from my priors, and then I'm adjusting based on scrim bucks. That's how it go.
Okay.
There's nothing about originality. There's about being right and wrong.
And I don't think you are often very right comparatively to everybody else.
Okay.
That is correct, but you guys are just lucky.
We're gonna move on now. We're gonna move now because we're getting too far down the rabbit hole, and we need to talk about other teams. So, thank you for watching the Guangzhou Charge team preview for 2022. Long and short of it is, buckle up. It's gonna be probably a tough season, but there's some hope at the end of the tunnel, maybe, that I've at least put in there for you. So, enjoy that, and see you for the next episode. No, not the next episode, next preview, which is happening right now. So we're going to do the next preview for the next team. And this will be the last one for this week's episode, or at least 255. And we're going to be talking about the Seoul Dynasty, which is Yiska's favorite team.
It is.
And
now we're rubbing hands.
I
can't
grab the
team, man.
This is going to be a spicy one. I can feel it in the bones.
I guess this will do. So, Seoul Dynasty. This is a very interesting team because I think for the entirety of their existence as a franchise, they've made that one finals in 2020, but aside from that, it's not been the greatest run for them. And even that one finals in 2020, most people kind of take that away from them, and they're like, oh, they didn't deserve to be there, blah, 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 blah. So, I mean,
reverse swept.
Even the one, they did get reverse swept. That was a really good match, though. I love that game.
Fearless
That was
came out of the fucking
hyperbolic
came out of the
time
hyperbolic
chamber.
time chamber and just.
So I'm not talking about that finals. I'm talking about the league finals.
The grand
is what I'm
finals.
talking about. Grand finals.
Okay, yeah.
But you just also remind us of the stage finals as well.
Yeah.
Where they went 3-0 up. They need one more map and they got reverse swept by Shanghai.
Tragedy.
Right.
So Seoul still titleless.
Yeah.
They've made playoffs. They've done better than some teams. Like I think Houston have not made playoffs.
Houston and Justice, I think.
Those are the only teams that have made playoffs. So Seoul's
that's not
run
right.
deep.
No,
Soul's run as deep as second
Toronto
place.
and Houston.
You're right.
There you go.
Imagine this podcast forgetting to hate on Toronto Defiant. Couldn't it be us?
I was going to say you guys have done plenty of Toronto discussion.
True.
So we're gonna leave Toronto out of it this time. They've had their turn. So Seoul Dynasty now. Fitz, Profit, Stalker, Smurf, Creative, Vindame. They've kept Creative, Fitz, and Profit.
Yep.
Fitz and Profit not argue. They just are the best parts of that team. They've changed up their coaching lineup as well. So Toby has rejoined the roster from Fusion, and now he is the head coach. They've retained MMA. Wizard Yong's joined the roster. I think was he there last year? I don't think he was.
I think that's a good question. I don't remember. I don't think
No,
so.
no, he wasn't. He joined November last year. So he joined it in the last year.
Oh, this is his second stint.
I believe so, yeah.
Okay.
So Wizard Hyung has come back with Toby. MMA's been there since 2019. Chang'un's gone over towards the Spark now. And this team has picked up Vindame from, I was going to say their academy team. Technically speaking, he was a Gen G player. Vindame was on Gen G, and his contract was still owned by Gen G and Seoul. He was on loan to O2 Blast. So he played for O2 Blast, got a title with O2 Blast, but his contract was owned by Seoul, so they could just yoink him anytime they wanted. And they definitely did that. They're like, what's that? We have a player in O2 Blast who won. Yoink, that's ours. So bad luck, everyone else. Creative comes back. Pretty underrated player. Stalker comes in from their Gen G lineup as well. So 2 promotions there. Smurf they bring over from the Shock. So not only this is what Seoul do to a motherfucker. They steal 2 players from the Shock. Vindame can't. They don't get Vindame over, and they, to be honest, probably wouldn't anyway because of Violet. Oh, actually, no, they would because then Violet wouldn't have to play Lucio. So they don't. So Shock can't get the O2 main support. That's not called Chio. And they can't get Vindame now. They lose Smurf to Seoul as well. Although maybe I don't know if they would have kept both Smurf and Super. Maybe they would have just only kept. My point is, Seoul have picked up some interesting good pieces that I like a lot. The Smurf Vindame Stalker triple piece that they picked up is very fucking nice. Now, do have to bring up they lost Jonak due to was it medical? Was it medical?
Remember, to be honest.
We don't know.
It
is
personal
curious
reasons.
that Jonak, I believe, is like still actively playing ladder.
Correct.
So who knows? Here's something you have to understand about Jonak's contract. It's still owned by Seoul. So if Jonak returns to the Overwatch League, he's back on Seoul.
Yep.
Whether he's playing or not, his contract is owned by Seoul, so he's back on Seoul.
Correct.
Naturally, he can't go to another team unless he's traded to another team.
Yep.
So he's currently out. He's nowhere. But if he does come back, he's on Seoul. So if you like Jonak, well done. You still have him, technically speaking.
Yeah.
Now, I think this roster is sick. I think even without Jonak, I think this roster is sick. I think people were down on the roster because they lost Jonak. Like, oh, Creative, but I think people were down on Creative a little bit unfairly. I think he's a player that has a lot. So I'm big on Creative to be honest with you.
I mean,
and I think this is one of the best DPS lines, generally speaking, as well.
Oh yeah, that's nuts.
I think that's fine and dandy to be high on Creative, but I'd much rather still pick 2 flex supports if I have the option, right? Like 2 flex supports seems like a high probability of being meta at this stage. So,
really?
Yeah, I think so.
We'll see.
We'll see.
Anything could happen. Anything could happen.
I mean,
I think
really, the answer is
you're fully gambling on like if you want double flex support, you're fully gambling on one of them to be able to play a main support because they don't.
You have to prepare for both. For both.
I'm just like fucking over this. Absolutely, like piggybacking, like good for nothing else Mercy playing, Lucio playing motherfuckers that like are by far the least requiring role in the Overwatch League have been riding.
What does that mean?
Like if that shit wasn't so boring, like to play, then that role would be highly oversaturated, right? Yes, there's
boring. Really
Interesting.
there's like this.
I don't get it.
This.
I'm gonna take a nap while Yiska does this.
I mean, come on. Is main support, if that still exists, let's say, hypothetically, in Overwatch 2, is it not clearly the least skill requiring role and clearly the talent, the role with the least
we
skill?
don't know.
We
don't know. How do
But
you know
even
it
then,
doesn't
you
come
still
to a point?
even then you still need if we get into a meta where Lucio is important, you still need that guy.
Yep.
Otherwise, you get Violet Lucio.
Yep.
Lucio is not a character.
So
He's
what?
not a
I
hero
don't
you
mind
can-
that. I don't think there's a tangible difference anymore.
To what? What do you? No. You cannot just like. You cannot pick up Lucio as a character just off the bat unless you are really good at Overwatch. You can't. It is impossible.
Here we
to
go.
do. There's too many
So-
rollouts. Too many.
So basically all of the league now.
Doubtful.
What?
Highly doubtful.
What do you mean all the league? I'm confused.
I don't think
He's saying there's a lot of good players in the league.
that there are. How many
That can pick
on
up Lucio?
how many on one hand can you name that have careers that have stage time on Lucio? Or are you just guessing?
No, but like the thing is, a role that's being held alive by one hero
Yeah.
should die.
I mean, I don't,
Know what it
I
should
don't
be?
hate the logic. I
Guys.
don't at all. I just think you're wrong.
Is
I-
BAP a main support to you?
He's
by the
actually
way?
both.
No.
BAP's both. BAP is
BAP's
both.
Okay,
both.
so then
I
okay.
would agree though.
Here's the thing. Here's the bone I'll throw to Yiska. Brig is slowly melding into both as well.
Yes.
So
No,
you're
it's
at the
worse.
point where main-
Every flex support player is better at Brig.
So we're getting to the point now where main support is literally just Mercy and Lucio.
Yes, and
Because-
it never was more.
Because guess what? Moira is even considered a flex in
Yeah.
some positions as well because you get guys like Fielder playing Moira, right?
Fucking
So a lot
Moira,
of-
man.
you know.
Like,
Well, Moira
So-
wasn't Moira always like
So
the
right now, the bone I'll throw to Yiska is that if you get a main support, you're basically just getting a Mercy Lucio player. But here's, I mean, I don't agree with everything Yiska said, but what I'm going to try and bridge here in terms of the gap is that to me, the support role I would like to see evolve. We're not even talking about Soul anymore, guys. For fuck's sake, the support role to me should just be a support role. I think the whole flex main thing can eventually just die, and we just have support players that just play everything. That would be the ideal
Right.
solution.
Yeah.
But cool. Now that we finished the podcast about not Soul, we can start talking about Soul again.
Yeah.
What are people's macro thoughts on this team?
No, you just could take this one actually. No,
Ah,
Yiska should
sure.
go for it. It's his baby.
This
This is maybe.
okay. Real talk. To be fair, let me get my caveats out before I,
Oh,
it's a little concerning for there to be only Smurf on tank.
Oh, okay. We're aligned. I'm
Okay,
interested.
okay.
Hang on, you trust
okay.
you trust Gaga, but you don't trust Smurf.
You have my
Correct, because Smurf's career is already one where he split the main tank role with another main tank,
preach.
right?
That's Krusty's decision.
Yes, but like,
That's the crack pipe being smoked. That's not. I think that's a shock thing. I think Smurf on any other team would just be a starter.
right, but that doesn't
yeah.
mean he would have the same quality on all of his picks, because he has to split practice time on them. I can't evaluate Smurf's ability to flex on everything like Fate can when he is sitting there splitting time with, the other guy everyone thinks is the best main tank in Overwatch League history. So, there's some concern here. I also concern spotted. Here's the copium. I feel like during the offseason, especially Arnold, has been signaling that they are open to the idea that DPS players will pick up tanks if needed. And
I mean, I think everyone's open to that idea, and that's
yeah. But I think like legit, like if for instance, let me think about. I think there's a world where Prophet plays a considerable amount of tank this season.
Mm-hmm.
Doom is rumored to be tank, no? Rumored?
Rumored. I mean, it is.
No, that's confirmed
wait,
actually
what?
at this point.
Yeah, it's confirmed.
Oh, okay. I wasn't. I remember. Only
oh, it is.
seeing,
Yes,
like,
yes, guys, it is confirmed. Yep.
I only remember seeing like the leak photo.
Yeah. But the thing is, like, I think the fluidity that gives them theoretically, it's also in my mind, it's not a problem. It's not like I'm thinking, oh my god, you're taking profit off DPS. No, that like Stalker is right there, boys. Like that's all fine and dandy. And one of the big things about Prophet is the ability to flex into just about everything and play it within 95% of the league's best. That's what.
Are we talking about leave or profit? I don't remember.
No, Prophet.
Right. Well, Yiska, Prophet is they're the same person.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Prophet walked so leave could fly. That makes no sense.
Doesn't.
But yeah. So okay, macro overview. I think this is top 2 APAC team.
Mm-hmm.
Oh shit! In the episode, we've already done the ranking in the episode.
Right. Yeah. And I think I'm more concerned about the lack of a flex support, and I actually do hope that Jonak finds his way back into Overwatch, because if that happens, baby, I might go to the moon with this team.
Bro, I already know the solution. Now that you said Prophet's going to play the tank, he might as well play the flex support too. All right?
Ooh. Now we're
Dude,
talking.
Okay. Here. I got you. Yiska.
Absolutely goated.
Yiska, I got you. Okay. Here's what happens. Okay. Chengdu implodes and they sell off some of their players.
Ooh.
Farway
They get Gaga.
is
Oh.
fluent in Korean. Farway's fluent in Korean and can comment Korean, and they don't get Jonak back, but they get Farway. Boom. I've solved your problem.
Nice.
That doesn't feel that good.
You didn't even go for the lowest hanging fruit of putting Prophet and Leave on the same team.
Oh, nut.
I mean, yeah, but we can't do that. That's just...
Here's a problem with your
Can do
little
everything
thing,
we want.
Kenobi. Here's a
What?
problem
It's a
with
toy store.
combining Chengdu. Huh?
We can do everything we want. This is a toy store.
Guys, it's a real shame that the Chengdu players have beef with Seoul. Anyway, so
Pain.
wow, we're talking about Seoul. That's right, we're talking about Seoul Dynasty. So so you don't trust. Okay, let's talk about the tank line. Let's just start with the tank. We usually start with DPS. Let's start with the tank line. You don't trust Smurf on solo. Now, I still don't. Oh, you guys suck. I still don't prescribe to the whole like, oh, he was splitting time with Super. I'm like, yeah, that's just Krusty, popping a couple puffs on the crack pipe. That's not like a normal. If he again,
But he wasn't
if Smurf-
playing it.
Huh?
But it's like he just okay. If they were just like, okay, so Smurf, you're playing Winston and you're playing Orisa. That's fucking it. You don't get to play anything else, fortunately. And it's just like you come in to play Ryan, or no, you come in to play Winston and Orisa. That's literally all you're playing.
Yep.
And so like in competitive games, he does not have the same amount of practice in like highly competitive games. Scrims, yeah, whatever. But in like high intensity games, he does not have the same practice on things like the Reinhardt, things like the.
You guys are way over, or you can be way over emphasizing the importance of that. I don't think that's a big a deal to me.
Okay.
Why?
I'll take scrims off. I'll take scrims over that. That's fine.
You see how that's worked out for Yiska, and you're still gonna do that?
I don't. It didn't work out that badly. I had like there were 2 teams that missed, but Houston was pretty good as foretold.
Also,
as Joe didn't.
You were like sticking on to some like weird thing about scrimbucks translating to like match results in a game where a single patch drops and everything changes
Look,
anyway. I don't care about that. I don't care about the result. I'm talking about from an individual player mechanics standpoint. If you're practicing that in scrims and you're doing that against good players, which they are going to be when you're scrimming, that's enough practice. I don't see like
I don't hate that argument either.
Difference.
Was he scrimming? Okay, was he scrimming? Was he scrimming the characters that Super were scrimming?
I don't know. But you can't assume he wasn't either. So I'm just going to give.
There would be no reason for him to do that if Krusty's crackpipe is saying you're here to play only Orisa and Winston. Why would they ever waste time putting him in a scrim as a Reinhardt player? Why would they do that? Especially when you have Super on the other side. There's literally no reason you can tell me that they would ever put Super in a script, like unless they're really just like maybe we need to see something about Super. There's literally no reason to put him on Ryan. There's no reason.
Why are we talking about?
Reason.
Oh my god, we're so off topic, guys. This is fucking crazy. Like we're talking about something completely stupid right now. Like that's not how. Not all scrims work in that way. First and foremost, people do get swapped around and get tested on different things to see who's going to be better during what meta and all that kind of stuff. It's not as cut and dry. Okay, I don't know. Like,
but AVRL,
on shock, I think it is.
Your point is well taken. I think like Smurf is clearly skilled enough as one of the few main tanks to be able to flex to the other tanks. But as we said, like time and time again, this is going to be a challenge for any solo tank player this year, right?
I just don't prescribe to like, oh, this guy doesn't have experience on blah blah blah. Because like, bro, if that was the case, then like, then all tanks just fuck this year. But you'll see when we start the season and a bunch of fucking main tanks are playing D.Va and they're playing D.Va well, everyone's gonna be, oh, I didn't know they could play D.Va. It's like, yeah, because guess what? They're actually just good players that can play Overwatch. That's the fucking that's the reason at the end of the day. Just because they didn't fucking play D.Va in an official match doesn't mean they can't fucking play it. Half the fucking main tanks are gonna be playing D.Va. You're just gonna see that. You are just gonna see that. So, I mean, live with that reality now. I don't care about who has time on stage and who doesn't. This is completely irrelevant to me. Anyway, back to discussion on the actual team itself. I mean, I'm pretty big on Smurf solo tank because I had him on when we did the overall draft, not the rookie draft. We did the overall draft. I think I even chose Smurf. I had Smurf as a pretty high caliber value pick for solo. So I rated Smurf light, and to be fair as well, I also think you want to go back to the substitution discussion with him and Super. I think Smurf got a lot more playtime than Super in a lot of cases as well. So
yeah,
I take that.
Yeah,
he did.
That's not wrong.
Okay, I'm gonna need someone to commit and just like PR suicide on this one because there's only one correct answer here. But if you had to pick between Smurf and Super and their contribution and importance of their contribution over the Shock's history, who is it?
Why are we doing this?
It's Smurf.
Yeah, it is Smurf.
Yeah, Smurf.
This is everything else is NA copium.
Yep. Yep. He's definitely unsung in that duo. That said, yeah, I'm not as bullish as AVRL on Smurf. I think that they'll be fine. But yeah, I can't, in good faith, look at somebody who has no track record on flex tanks being incredible. When I judge these teams, I do look at a premium with teams with flex tanks. Obviously, they are generally speaking a little bit more skilled. Do I suspect that Smurf will be playing some flex tanks? 100%. Do I think that Prophet may rotate in? I think it's a possibility. But just in terms of like him solo tanking, yeah, I'm a little interested. I do have some question marks there. If he can perform to the level that we have seen him in the past perform on his main tanks, if he can bring that to the table with something like a D.Va or something like a Sigma, we'll have to see. I'm not as high on it.
I think I have them I think as like a tank line, quote unquote. Even I have them at like 4th. I think Smurf is at the current moment for me. I think like it would probably go Shanghai tank line, then Gaga, then probably Fury, and then probably Smurf.
Yeah, I don't hate that
because I just I don't know. I understand like AVRL makes good points and they're definitely facts, but like I have not seen in competitive Smurf playing anything but the two things that he's played. Granted, he's very talented, and I think he can probably make something happen, but based on what I've seen, it's been the two main tanks that he's played. That's basically been it. Is he going to be able to translate?
It's just all he's been asked to be played.
Okay,
sure. Yeah, but that's how we can judge them.
That's all I can
right?
see. I don't see the scrims, and I don't know. So he's only been able to play those two. He's been very good at them, but can he play everything else? I don't know. He's been playing the same two heroes for the past 2 years. I can't, in good faith.
I think people are going to be really surprised. People are going to be really surprised when they see players playing stuff and like
if he's
they're not known
great.
for.
If he's great, if he's up to the level that he was when he was on those other two heroes, then like it's fantastic. But I currently I don't have the same faith that I have in him than the other three that I listed. It's just I don't have that. Here's something crazy for you.
I trust Smurf more than Gaga. I do.
That's fine.
I have him above Gaga personally for me.
Okay.
My rank, I would actually have Smurf as second after Lee Jae on Fate. I do. Even above Fury, even above Gaga. I do. I have a lot of trust in Smurf.
Sure. I think that's I'd be happy to. I'm interested to see.
He was good. I'm not saying that Smurf is bad, right? Like it is. I'm saying that based on the things that I've seen Gaga play 4 tanks very, very, very well, extremely well, and was the best ball in the world at one point. He was extremely good at Orisa back in the day. He's very good at Winston, and then the fourth one I said
Ball. Winston, Orisa.
Ryan is but I've actually witnessed Gaga be good on those 4 heroes. I've witnessed Smurf be good on 2. So I have much more breadth of the fact that we're going to a game where you have to play a lot. I have more faith in Gaga to switch to those other things.
But okay, AVRL, but you can we can all agree that if this team had a top tier off tank, that would probably improve the chances of this being a better year, right?
It would elevate them a lot. It would elevate them a lot. I agree.
I would really like a second tank on this team.
Yeah,
but it seems like Seoul are content with one. Like they're very confident with the one, and I look at them and be like, "Let's just steal Fury from Fusion."
Yeah, so pretty much. Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah. Because in Yiska as well, you just go into a
toy store,
shop,
baby.
Go into a toy store with the team's name on it. Like,
the toy store get toy to you.
And just you look around, and I think this one you don't even pay for. You just snatch them off the shelf and just run away.
You hit him with a hot poach.
You hit him with the Bowser. Just fucking steal the princess. Right.
So get to I'll save the DPS for last because that's a nice way to end it. Creative Vindame. Now I talked a little about Vindame already. He did share game time with Chio in O2, and people will assume that Chio was just a better support, but they shared game time pretty evenly, and they both seemed pretty good to me. Like I'd never really got a strong case that Chio was fundamentally better. I would say that they played Vindame mostly for his brig, whereas Chio came in for other things. But I don't think that there's this huge gap that people seem to think that Chio is just way better than Vindame. I think they're both pretty comfortably good, at least from what I could tell. So I think this is a great pickup. I think Seoul invested well into having put this guy into the O2 system while still owning the contract, which means they can just yoink him anytime they want. With Jonak, the support line is definitely better, but people are down on Creative. But I've seen Creative do some really crazy things. When I've watched Creative gameplay, he's one of the few flex supports that his peaks are really high. Sometimes I've seen his peaks, I'm like, man, this guy's playing out of his mind. It's not always been like that. Part of that might have been because of the whole Seoul thing, where Seoul just seemed like a really weird team, where they should be much better, but maybe they choke. I mean, they definitely choke when they get reverse swept by Shanghai in melee. But yeah, I mean, Seoul choked last year as well. I mean, they failed to get past Chengdu at multiple points to qualify into tournaments. They even make playoffs last year. I think they failed to make playoffs last year, didn't they?
I don't think.
No, they didn't even. I don't think they even made playoffs last year. So yeah, they lost in the play-ins to.
I think it was to Chengdu, if I remember correctly.
Chengdu didn't play the play-ins.
Oh, I think they got out first.
No, they lost to Philly. So they lost to Philly. So Seoul just kind of hard choked all the last year. And I mean, you could say that their team was probably worse on paper than Philly last year because they still had the gesture Marvel 2U situation going on. I think 2U got a little bit hard done by. I've seen them play well, but whatever. Sabiolby just didn't exist on the roster. They just never played him a single time. People will say what they will want to say about Animo. I don't think he was a big problem, but people don't seem to like him. Seoul were a good team. I think every single week that we watched Seoul last year, there was a good chance that they could win. They were a deadly team that could take a game off of anybody in APAC. They can threaten anybody, and mostly because they're DPS line. But they could never capitalize and actually make a tournament or anything, so they kind of fizzled out. And creative stocks are just kind of there. And I think a lot of people just put him because he's playing next to Animo and they don't like Animo. They just kind of think he's bad as well by nature of him being next to Animo. You know what I mean? Like by association. So I think that's a little bit unfair, though.
If you're arguing that, that's dumb.
The tank improvement is the tank improvement plus Stalker is really what sells the team for me. So yeah. I think creative Vindame is good.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think creative actually is super duper rated. And I remember like last year when we were doing watch parties and stuff like APAC hours, we were like kind of like, you know, creative's kind of like not too bad. Like for someone who's like coming in and like, you know, has the pressure of going to Seoul, I think that for him to perform that well in a situation that was not ideal, I think kind of speaks to how good he is. I think that if they can, I think obviously like if Jonak is here, then like it's like way better because Jonak is Jonak, but I think like creative himself is someone who I think Seoul should be pretty proud of for getting and scouting and that chance pretty early. Yeah. Because I think he's a good little player that they've gotten on now and can build into for the future. Vindame, I'm not as I think AVRL Vindame is more. I'm much more like known with what creative when we saw last season, and I think it's good. And I think like this is a support line that I think is pretty up there when we talk about APAC. So I think Dynasty have all the pieces again. Just about making.
Yeah,
you're cutting out a little. You're cutting it out a little bit there, but I think I got most of what you said.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't. I'd probably echo some similar sentiments. I think creative has some quite high peaks. I agree. Can perform. Is somebody that stands out. I will say inconsistency feels a little aggressive, a little unfair. But it's you see those flashy plays. You see him genuinely be a playmaker, and it's just like why isn't that always happening? I think his floor is very high. To be fair, I think they're competitive. I think they're quite good. Yeah, solid overall. I don't see any faults. I'm not as big on like the double flex support stuff. I think it's a luxury if I'm to be honest. It's a good start. I like it.
What?
Now the best part, yeah, go on.
Why? Literally why? Like why would double flex support? In my mind, okay, where do you lose more performance, do you think? Do you lose more performance putting a flex support on the main DPS role or a main support on the flex DPS role?
Wait, say that one more time for me.
You said DPS twice.
Sorry. If you, like, where do you lose more? Or who has a harder time switching sub-roles? The main support having to play flex support or the flex support having to play main support?
I know your line of logic. I'm not going to get trapped by that. I'll counter with a question to you. What's been more historical, having a main support or having two flex supports? AVRL, back to you.
Damn, Mothzen was kind of crazy, I remember. That was pretty good.
Joe just like looking under all his trap cards, like, which one can I use? Which trap card can I activate? That was funny. DPS time. Yes. We're not gonna get stun locked by some flex sport discussion right now. We're already 30 minutes in. Okay, we're gonna talk about DPS now. They didn't use Sabiolby last year. He basically didn't. He wasn't part of the team by all accounts. Now they have a third DPS. Yes, and it sounds like they will use the fuck out of him, especially if what Yiska is saying comes to light with Prophet, maybe even flexing to tank to cover for the fact that they don't have a second tank and maybe cover some of Smurf's blind spots. That'd be crazy. Stalker is unlike how the fans voted for the rookie, the rookie draft. They heavily undervalue Stalker when this dude could be really big for Seoul. Like, he's been in the Seoul pipeline for so long. Very flexible, hit scan, projectile, does it all. He's been Gen.G's most important player for a long time, even through their bad seasons. And even in their bad season, he was the shining light, really pulling the team together. I remember metas where, Tracer metas, he was the Tracer player. Ashe meta, he was the Ashe player. Talk about him being on Genji as well. He's really just played so much. He's been so flexible and so good for Gen.G. And skill level wise, he's been there as well. He just has never had good pieces around him on Gen.G to help him out. He's perpetually been the best player on, unfortunately, not a very good team. And, I think the rest of Gen.G kind of let him down, but now he does have the right pieces around him to make it work. He's with a very good roster, and he doesn't have to be the deadlift guy on the team anymore. I think that's so big for Stalker. So I'm really happy to see him with both Fitz and Profit. And I think there was some concern or some like commentary about him maybe not even getting game time because the Profits duo is so good. And I think I even fit into that a little bit with some memeing about the fact like, oh, here's the best player that'll never be played ever. But I think he actually will get played. I think I've mentioned previously there are plenty of metas where you are going to see Stalker in instead of Fitz if it's a projectile heavy meta. But consider that because Stalker has the Tracer, it's very important. Fitz doesn't have the Tracer. Fitz has the Sombra, he's got the Doom, he's got all the hit scans, right? Very cool, important. But because he doesn't have the Tracer, it's harder to play him around Profit. Whereas if you have a Tracer player around Profit, Profit can now play other things. This is the same thing I was talking about with Predator and Leave. Now that a Predator can play Tracer, Leave can do other things. This is the same kind of energy. This is the same, the factor on the team that makes a big difference.
Yeah,
I think
agreed.
I was gonna say, I think as well with like the DPS duo, it's like even when Stalker was like, even when Gen.G was like pretty decent when they were like that one gauntlet season that they had where they got like second. He was, I mean, and that team wasn't like terrible, and they got to like the end, but like mostly I think they got that far and they beat like a pretty decent runaway team. I think on the way to gauntlet second is like they did it because Stalker was literally just like 1v9 fucking Tracer. I think that he is probably a contender for Rookie of the Year. Not going. I mean, I have to caveat this every time because people will come at me and just tell me, "You said he was going to be Rookie of the Year." It's like, no, Proper's going to win it. So he's going to be up there though. He's a nominee. Got to have nominees sometimes, or else. But I think having Prophet and Fitz is like, and then Stalker. This is this now is to me like a DPS line that I'm like, this probably competes with number one. And probably competes, and it's probably like overall. I mean, I really like Chengdu's DPS line. This is probably the closest after. Like, I think Shanghai obviously gets like number one, and then like I think you fight between this Seoul Dynasty lineup and this Chengdu Hunters lineup is like the second best one, and then just kind of flip flop them because I think that that's where we're at in terms of the DPS lineups that we have.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I think I'll go a step further and say that this is the best trio in the world, I think. I think they complement each other so incredibly well, like AVRL said. The meta overlap is there, but in a very productive way. Again, to defer to AVRL, like having that extra Tracer player that Fitz just isn't is incredibly beneficial. And then if Profit does dabble with some tanks, which is a possibility, that opens even more playtime. So yeah, I think this is the best trio in the world, and yeah, I think it's going to be like their shining beacon in a game with such an impact role with DPS coming out at the forefront. Yeah, I think Seoul's going to do incredibly well.
Avril, let me ask you this. In your mind, right? Does it not feel like we have the four horsemen of rookies this year in terms of we have Proper, we have a Predator, we have Stalker, and we have MN3. Are those like almost equally matched with Proper being very obviously like the prime guy, but
you gotta
like
be careful. You gotta be careful because the NA fans are like, oh,
Oh,
what
the NA
about
fans are gonna eat you
Speedily?
alive, dude.
Speedily is gonna be rookie of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, when he plays,
after he
like, what,
starts
2
playing, when
games?
I get the ballot, be my guess.
So yeah, you're saying, do we have some sort of insane
Yeah.
rookie? We do have an
Okay.
insane
So, but
rookie.
where? Okay. Outside of
Is
proper,
MN3
where
that
is?
good? I know nothing about.
Okay, you're about to enter the church, Avril.
Okay. When we get to Philly, we can.
What's the question? I don't know. Did you ask a question? I'm confused.
Right. Like, am I wrong to think like Stalker is up there with the rest of the guys with MN3? With
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. He just didn't get to play. I still wouldn't put him. He's more flexible than a Predator and MN3, which is fantastic. Because he's got like a potential. I have to be very hesitant about saying this. I can't. Not unlike most of Reddit, I don't just willy nilly apply a hyperflex label to everybody. But Stalker's close.
Okay.
He is close. He's getting there. He has the type of hero
He's
pool
edging.
with the game time to prove it as well, that he can flex between roles and be very effective on it and be the core key player. He basically has the kind of characteristics that you want to see in players with MVP level like talents, which is that he can carry a team and can sway a team and can put a whole team in a backpack and force you to win a game that you probably otherwise shouldn't have won.
Yeah.
The kind of leave style stuff, right? And I've seen Stalker do that. I've seen Proper do that, obviously. And Proper could do that on a team where his entire team is stacked and he still looks like the best player. Stalker does it when his team doesn't look great. But my point is, he can drag a team kicking and screaming across the line, which is the mark of a great player, because it's hard to do that in games like Overwatch, I feel.
Is he Flatter 2.0? But actually won games?
You're not wrong.
He does deadlift. Stalker does deadlift. I really do think players that can deadlift are truly the best players in the game.
Agreed.
And in a game like Overwatch, where it's fundamentally more difficult to be a deadlift player, anyone that can do that, that's like swimming upstream. Like you're really doing something special if you're doing that.
Yeah.
So
I don't think Seoul is locked in for best DPS at all. I think you have to, the consideration has, you have to reason me out it not being so.
So you're saying Seoul do have the best DPS?
I think Seoul are the gold standard, and if someone wants to make the argument that it is someone else, then I'm willing to entertain that, but that is currently my assumption.
I think the only team you can do it with is Chengdu at the current.
Yeah.
And you're stretching pretty significantly.
Because the problem with other teams is like San Francisco have Proper, but then after that it gets a bit less. You should get there. If everyone plays the potential, you should actually be there with Gladiators, to be in all honesty.
Yeah.
But I think there's just a lot of people down on where Arns and Patty Pan are. So that aside, I mean, there's Flitter Lip and Who Are You, but I think people are not big on Who Are You. But then I don't think he's going to get played anyway.
Who Are You though? I would imagine you would.
I think he's there for a reason, but
you think so? Okay.
Regardless,
I think you have to. Well, if you're talking about like a whole DPS line, you have to talk about everybody in the line.
So
because otherwise you have to just take Prophet and Fitz or one of them in Stalker, and you can't, because they're better as a trio is the thing for Seoul. So you have to compare them to the trio of Shanghai.
There's a rumor
even
that
if only 2 of them will play.
That Lip likes his toilet seat swarmed, so they got Who Are You?
Instead of right, okay. All right.
Okay. How about the rankings?
All right. Yeah, how about that? I think Seoul for me, currently the second best team in APAC behind Shanghai. And that's mostly because I still have the tank and support line of Shanghai beating out Seoul, even though I think Seoul's DPS line compete very closely. So there's that. Seoul also one of the top teams in the world, easily top 5 in the world, maybe even. Especially if Chengdu shits the bed on their roster, then Seoul instantly replaced Chengdu for me in that top 3.
Sure. Agreed with you there. Yeah, I have a similar APAC ranking. I have them second. It's not close.
Same.
Even with me being as poo-poo as I am on Smurf, it's less poo-poo. It's more of just like questions. I just don't have the footage to be able to leverage him up to the rest of them, right? I still think he's very good. I think he's going to do great things for this team. There are just some question marks at main tank for me. I think that it's more than enough kind of overcompensated with this incredible DPS trio. Right now, I have them anywhere in terms of a range globally. I could see them being anywhere from like second to sixth at the lowest, if I'm gonna be completely honest. Like, I genuinely think like all firing on all cylinders, Prophet, Stalker are fucking nutting. Smurf is the fucking next coming of Diva Christ. Yeah, I think they could be better than somebody like the Fuel or the Rain, and I don't think it'll be particularly all that close. Soul's good.
I have them third in APAC behind Chengdu and Shanghai.
Okay.
And I think it's very close. I think it's like if I, because I have them fifth and sixth in my world, so I have them like super close. I have the same like trepidations about Seoul's tank line, and I think their support line is currently worse than the Chengdu one. The DPS line I think is like, I would probably say at this point like significantly better than Chengdu, because I think the problem with Chengdu's DPS line is that Jinmu is such a funny hero type of player, and Seoul doesn't really have that with their three. They have like three just fucking studs. So that's where I kind of stand with them. I think if should any changes happen to the Chengdu roster, I think they immediately fall down to third, and Seoul takes that spot. Especially, and same with my world ranking.
I think saying Chengdu being second in the world is a fine opinion to have for someone who's a crypto billionaire and can finance that team.
I didn't say the world. Did I say the world? No, I meant APAC. Did I say world?
No, you didn't. I peeved.
Okay.
So where do you think Soul's gonna be?
Yeah, where's your ranking?
Please, just come on.
We've been here for a long time.
I mean,
dude.
okay.
We got 4 more to do.
Real talk. I think Seoul is the most likely team if you want to dethrone Shanghai.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'm not mad at that.
I think they were, especially with Jonak. I remember looking at the roster and be like, these guys are building a Shanghai killer team.
True.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Yeah.
So I'm expecting Seoul and Shanghai to have some great games. Unfortunately, the Seoul versus Fusion Mimi matchup kind of dies for me. I loved doing that as a possible rivalry, but I don't think it's going to be much of a rivalry this year.
Yeah.
Seoul versus Shanghai should be the spiciest rivalry in APAC.
Yep.
Those top 3 are going to be great, though. Like, all of them are going to be good matches.
Yeah. Again, pending what happens to Chengdu, but hoping for the best here. So that concludes our Seoul Dynasty team preview for TCP of 2022. Great news for Seoul fans, but you guys have also had plenty of pain in the past to get through. You've been close multiple times, a lot of second places. Could 2022 be your year? Tune into the Overwatch to find out. Thank you for watching our team preview. We're going to move on to the next team now, and the final team for this. Oh, we're done, aren't we? No, we just did the final team for this episode. 255 is done and dusted. We'll see you for 256. Thank you. More teams. 4 more APAC teams still to go. See you next episode.